Injuries and non-essential personnel will be temporarily moved. It came just hours after the UK gave the US permission to use its military sites.
Development on this story involving the Epstein files and all the allegations
specific
that
and
have been
limited
swirling
defensive
around
purposes.
about Andrew
striking
over
Iran
many
for
years, from
third
Virginia
day.
Giuffre,
Donald
now
Trump
sadly
says the war
deceased,
could
and
last
since
weeks.
then,
He wants
and
to
certainly
stop
what's been
Iran
contained in the
to build a
Epstein
nuclear
files as
weapon,
released in the last
among other
few
objectives.
weeks. But
combat operations continue at this time in full
morning,
force, and they will continue until all of our objectives are achieved. We have very strong
birthday present that is.
Israel and Lebanon are also trading blows, with Israel saying in the last few minutes that it's launched a new wave of strikes.
Of our late Queen Elizabeth. This is an extraordinary development. Those of us who've been talking an awful lot about establishment cover-ups and lack of, should we say,
loud laughs have also been heard in Doha and Dubai.
Very, very serious allegations.
The Foreign Office could begin evacuation flights for the 94,000 British nationals who flagged their presence in the Middle East, where
done the job of actually looking into these issues.
Dara Adabaya's in Dubai, where a number of hotels
has not been charged with any crime at this point,
and he was on a boat when the Fairmont was hit,
any wrongdoing in relation to any of the allegations.
But yeah, I do think
give you more on that. We'll talk to you about that.
Shipping routes facing disruption is also pushing up oil prices. Elsewhere, migrants granted asylum in the UK will have their refugee status reviewed every 30 months, down from 5 years currently. It's a policy modelled on Denmark. In sport, Arsenal beat 10-man Chelsea 2-1 in the Premier League, while it was a 2-2 draw in the Scottish Premiership for Rangers and Celtic. And Sinners was the big winner at the Actor, formerly SAG Awards.
Home, of course, of the alarm clock Brit. And you're waking up to this continuing story. Loads of people, I have to say, those airstrikes, Israel and the United States early on Saturday morning, the fallout over the weekend. We'll discuss it in great detail. I don't know what your opinion is. It is the main news story. We won't just make it that, but we'll concentrate on what is out there. As ever, if you do want to be on the show, very important this morning, as ever. If you want to be on, 0344 499 1000, get those voice notes in as soon as possible to Christian, who has a secret to admit to, which we'll do that later. Also, you can text 87222. Get your message to us. We'll get it on. There's so much. Poppy Coburn on the papers. We've got, I don't know, we've got loads of people. We will actually go live to Dubai. Isabel Oakeshott, who lives out there with her young children, has reported in the last half an hour blasts can be heard in Dubai main city already this morning. We will do that exclusively. But overnight, for your information, Iran has attacked the British military base, RAF Akrotiri in Cyprus. That was around midnight, drone attack. The UK government as well scrambling to try and get 94,000 people stuck in the Middle East out. I don't mean to be cynical, but the dream of a tax-free, sun-drenched haven has dissolved in many people's eyes over the weekend. The government says also, I don't want to scare people, the UK terror threat back here is now under review. I don't want to make it about Keir Starmer, but what a pathetic example of an international statesman. He's been criticised for sitting on the fence over Iran by all sides. He said, we'll do whatever we can defensively, despite the fact, and actually one of the better people in the Labour Party, in my humble opinion, Defence Secretary John Healey over the weekend, saying that Iran has plotted more than 20 terror attacks on British soil in the last number of years. There was a sort of bit of a U-turn yesterday, number 1745, when Starmer allowed Trump to use 2 RAF bases. But he made his position clear. We're not joining the strikes. You can use that. But at the end of the day, I'm a human rights lawyer. Whatever your view on what is happening, I just want to say one thing, right? And everybody's got an opinion. Talking to my wife, talking to my kids, everybody is asking the question. The mad mullahs of Iran have financed every single Middle Eastern terrorist group for as long as you can remember. I'm talking Hamas. I'm talking ISIS, I'm talking Hezbollah, I'm talking the Houthi rebels. So, you know, think Manchester bombs, think of the ISIS terror attacks. That's the reality of where we're at. Now, half of the country is going good on Trump for having the balls to do something about it, supported by the Israelis. Of course, we should be there, but we're not. The rest, you know, led by the Greens, are saying, no, what was it Belansky said at the weekend? We should cut ties with America. It's not fair to have killed a supreme leader. Corbyn was out on a march. Did you see that? What about the regime and the poor people? I suspect that the people of Iran are over the moon. And just to give you an idea about the Green Party, because I'm going to do this for a reason. They had their moment on Friday morning. They won Gorton and Denton. Some would say fair and square. Nigel Farage and others would say not. Do you know that the Green Party deputy leader, Mohsin Ali, joined a rally in London on Saturday supporting the Islamic terror regime? So for all those people who go, well, they really understand it, let's just get back there very quickly. Their deputy leader is supporting the Islamic terror regime. They want to legalise drugs, have open borders, and people are taking them seriously? Are you joking? 0344 419 1000, text to 87222. We're delighted to say this woman will give me an idea of what I'm talking about this morning. Poppy Coburn, hello.
Good morning.
I feel like it's great. I've got a serious journalist with me this morning. She said to me, and I quote, I was knackered last week, and Saturday she said I was going to have a lie-in, and then the phone went because Trump decided to...
How selfish is he, huh?
Yeah.
Why
Honestly,
did you not call me?
Donald, you could have waited. I was having a lie-in, mate. What do you make of all this? Seriously, what's your view?
I mean, where to start? I mean... Personally, I am usually quite reluctant to promote any foreign intervention because, you know, when I was young, it was the Iraq War.
Yeah.
We've all lived through the aftermath of the Iraq War, which I think we can now say, in hindsight, was probably a mistake. So I am usually quite reticent to get involved with these kind of like overseas regime change operations. That said, what you just said a few minutes ago is completely correct about Iran. This is the roguest of rogue states, and it has been meddling with the UK. In fact, you know, we've been hearing stories for years about how people who are coming over in the small boats, many of whom will be Iranian agents.
Yep.
There was a court case, I think last year, where some of these Iranian agents were planning a terror attack, which was, you know, luckily foiled at the last minute, but because obviously we have a wide open border, you know, they can just walk into the country whenever they like, or
why not?
Swim in, why not?
Yes, swim in. And we'll pick you up because of your human rights.
We'll pick you up in a water taxi.
Yeah.
You know, the Iranian regime has been meddling with Western countries for years and years and years. You know, hostile propaganda, financing terror attacks, destabilising the region. I mean, Israel can tell you firsthand the stuff that they've had to be dealing with Iran and its nuclear threats. So I certainly would be very happy to see the regime fall. And that's why I think there's a difference between people who are, you know, they're principled about non-intervention. Fine, I completely get it. I think it's a valid position to have. And Mohsin Ali actually trying to turn up at a protest in favour of the Ayatollah, who is now dead, you know, again.
And Jeremy Corbyn.
And Jeremy Corbyn turning up at a protest saying, you know, hands off Iran, as if this kind of regime is some cuddly social democratic.
And the point I want to make, and people will say, oh, you're still going on about Friday. No, I'm not. They won that by-election fair and square. And we can talk later about family voting and that. But here is the point. When I see Polanski paraded on the BBC with Laura Kunsberg, suddenly on the front of every single newspaper, on the back of One Day of Glory, let's just nail this. He thinks we should cut ties with America, and his deputy is supporting a terror regime. And this is what I'd love to say to Mohsin Ali or that idiot Zach Polanski is, how would you seriously look in the eyes of the people who lost kids in the Manchester bombing? How would you look in their eyes and say, yeah, we should support this right? Whether you agree with Trump or not, you know, whether he had the balls to do it or not, the truth of the matter is, Iran, and actually, I don't know where you stand on this. One of the best people in the Labour Party, and there aren't many, is John Healey. I think the Defence Secretary is a good one. Just listen to what he said over the weekend about the truth about Iran wanting to attack the UK. John Healey.
20 terror plots directed at Britain, sponsored by Iran. Tens of thousands of young people, protesters, murdered on the streets in the last few months in Iran. 57,000 Iranian drones fired by Russia into Ukraine. Proxy groups that destabilise countries right across the region. Make no mistake, this is a regime that menaces other countries, exports terror, murders its own citizens, and must never be allowed to have a nuclear weapons programme.
You see, for me, that's about the most serious Labour politician. I've said it for months and months. He should be the leader of that. I mean, that is spot on. And yet your boss, Mr. Healey, is sat on the fence saying, you know, we're only going to act defensively. It was only over the weekend that he turned around, as he always does, and goes, oh, you can use the bases. Yeah. I don't know. I can't have Starmer anyway, but Healey's dead.
One of the most pathetic things I've ever watched, to be fair, mate. He basically threw John Healey under the bus, who laid some car crash interviews because he couldn't answer a question. He's obviously told not to answer that question. And then a couple of hours later, he's gone, oh, you know, we've accepted the request of the USA to use the bases. Well, I'm not being funny. You shouldn't have said that, really. Anyway, you know, that discussion, you know, is basically saying that America came begging, and then we've reluctantly accepted. It's pathetic. They're our biggest allies. He's actually trying to, with the Israelis, trying to invade a terrorist state who sponsor proxy terrorism all around the world. It's terrible. He's terrible. He's got to go. Great show, mate. Ta-da.
Thank you to Andy. Just try to keep a straight face, because the air conditioning isn't working in the studio this morning, and it's like a sauna. To which Poppy says, I quite like it warm, but Jez, you should have turned up in a Hawaiian shirt. That would have worked well this morning.
Sipping on a pina colada.
Thank you. I'm glad you said that. I think you're going to say something else. Can I just throw a few questions at you, Poppy, and you, gang, Alarm Clock Brits. See what you make of this. 0344 499 1000, text to 87222. As Iranians in their own country, this is just an idea Christian and I had. Well, he did. As they celebrate the death of the evil dictator Khomeini, which he is, and this is a man who sponsored terrorism, do you think the left will be able to recognise that actually Israel, a state they love to hate, has actually helped to free oppressed Muslims in Iran?
Well, you know, look at Golders Green. Look what's happening at the weekend, where, you know, Iranians and Israelis were celebrating together.
Yeah.
What could be the toppling of this evil regime.
Yeah.
And it's completely true. You know, actually, Israel has been helping out in stabilising the region for a very, very long time. It's the complete opposite of the narrative about Israel's role in the Middle East.
It's a really good point.
You know, you could even see it over Somaliland, where they recognised Somaliland, and there were celebrations over Israel doing that as well. But I would say, if you've been driving past the Iranian embassy in the last couple of weeks, you will always see Israeli flags. And that's because Israelis are turning up in solidarity with the Iranian people, while leftist protesters are nowhere to be seen, because for them it's not a Palestine march, there's no narrative.
No.
But the Israelis have been turning up when the Ayatollah has been ordering protesters be killed and beaten and tortured. It's the Israelis who are standing in solidarity with them.
Couldn't agree more.
You know,
great point, Christian.
You know,
I think it's a really good point. A couple of questions you'd know. Why doesn't Starmer prescribe the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, the IRCG, responsible for repeated terrorist attacks across the world? Why won't he say that's a terrorist group?
I mean, it is completely absurd. I have a funny feeling it's got something to do with the Americans not wanting us to do it. Yeah, it's the only rational explanation, because there are so many reasons for why you would want to prescribe this group.
Sure.
I mean, even more so than like a group like Palestine Action. It's very clear-cut their involvement in terrorism. We're going to be in a very strange situation where the UK is totally out of step as well, where we kind of have legitimate diplomatic relations with Iran.
Of course we're out of step.
It's a rogue state.
Of course we're out of step.
You know,
that's the embarrassment of this country.
And again, it comes back to Israel again. What? So we've cut diplomatic ties with Israel. We don't want to acknowledge it as a country with a right to exist. But the IRGC is totally fine. Like, this terrorist group is completely okay to operate on UK soil.
Ludicrous.
Yeah,
Going further, just quickly, why hasn't Starmer expelled Iranian regime diplomats from 8 embassies in London?
Yeah, I mean, this really does just boggle the imagination. It makes no sense to me. It's not like the Iranians are saying, well, obviously we can't negotiate with the US, but we can negotiate with the UK. If you look at the statements that were coming out of Iranian state media yesterday, they were saying the US and the UK, they want to retaliate to us as well. So the idea that we haven't expelled their diplomats... Of course not. You know, when Russia invaded Ukraine, the first thing we did is to expel their diplomats. Why are we not doing the same for Iran? I don't understand it.
Hello to, I don't know, Starmer talking about international law, whilst our enemies don't give a toss about international law. The exact reason this is happening in Russia, Ukraine and Iran is because they ignore international law. That's somebody against Trump, quite understand. Stephen, morning, JK. Get that man off the TV. He's a coward. We should support America. Starmer is useless. Stephen Lincoln. Good morning to Tim. UK veteran, the clip of Starmer's speech was embarrassing. It's no wonder we are losing troops quicker than we can recruit. I'm ashamed. Maybe the country is split. We want your views. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. We're going there with a voice note. We're heading live to Dubai, where, as I broke the news earlier, several large blasts have been heard this morning in Dubai as Iran launches more retaliatory attacks in the Middle East. Isabel Oakeshott, live and exclusive to breakfast. Next on Talk. Morning, Jay.
Morning, Jeremy. Great show as always. And I just want to say, it's alleged that there's been a potential terror attack in Texas. It's alleged. In the guy was wearing, you know, property of Allah t-shirt and what have you, and started going on a rampage. Now, how many sleeper cells do we have in Europe, the UK? You know, this is the big concern, and this is what we've been saying for years. You know, Starmer's on tiptoes because whatever action he takes now, are they going to give the go-ahead and start attacking us? Well, anyway, hopefully the left go and give them a good cuddle when they start attacking everyone and talk them down from doing it.
Bold as brass, Breakfast Radio, the Jeremy Kyle Breakfast Show on Talk.
Yes, there won't be a sleepless night in my household over it.
But
of course, I can't condone this attack upon him. But the fact of the matter is, Ian Huntley, and I've had this from reliable prison sources, has been a marked man since the very day he walked into prison. There's been a price on his head, a price of kudos, if you will, for anybody that could end his life. And it would appear that somebody's got very close to doing that.
Kuwait, Bahrain, Doha and the UAE remain suspended.
Across the UK, watch on DAB+.
Buckle up for a journey to the Stargate
on your mobile.
of common sense. Across the UK,
side.
this is Talk.
Welcome back, 6:25. You were taught the home of common sense and, of course, the home of alarm clock Britain. You're waking up to the fallout from the American and Israeli attacks into Iran. Don't forget that breaking news in the last 25 minutes. Several large blasts have been heard this morning in and across Dubai as Iran continues those retaliatory attacks in the Middle East. Isabel Oakeshott and Just a Tick live from Dubai. Wayne, good morning.
Morning, Jezza. Another typical weekend in Starmer's crap life. Oh, dear me. They've planned 20 terror attacks, yet we won't respond in any way. Scared of the Muslims once again, mate. Keep up the good work, Jezza. I'm sick of this moron. Let's get him out.
Couldn't agree more. Let's go live, as I said, to Dubai. We're delighted to have a Talks International editor, Isabel Oakeshott. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, Jeremy, yes, as you just reported there, and I put on social media earlier, there were a series of very loud blasts in the area of Dubai that I'm based in. That's in the Marina area. It's a very touristy area, actually, and also a very popular residential place. And those blasts were the loudest we've heard yet, but equally, we are reassured that they are most likely the sound of interception by the UAE's quite sophisticated THAAD interception kit. That is the Terminal High Altitude Area Defence System that the authorities have here. And it is one of the most advanced defence systems in the world. And one of the effects that it has is when there is an intercept, it can create a kind of what they call a canyon effect, so a kind of reverberation that makes it sound as if that activity is actually a lot closer than it is. So just because there were quite loud noises here in the marina and more widely in built up areas of Dubai, that does not mean that there has been any kind of strike anywhere around here.
Just really grateful for you joining us. I just want to ask you on all sorts of levels, but I want to start with the right level, which is the personal level. You're out there with your kids. What's the last 48 hours been like? We read a lot, but this is real life for you right now, right?
It is. So I would say it's been quite surreal, actually. You know, people choose to live in Dubai because it is regarded as one of the safest places in the world in a very unstable region. So when this first kicked off, as it were, there was absolute disbelief among residents here that this could possibly have happened. You know, when there was that impact on the Fairmont Hotel on the iconic Palm Jumeirah, the widespread assumption was that this must have been a mistake. And yet within a matter of hours after that, it became apparent that Dubai is actually being targeted by these crazy ayatollahs. So there was this initial shock, which then gave way, I think, to defiance, certainly amongst residents. And I think there's a real sharp divide here between tourists and those who live here. And quite understandably, tourists are pretty freaked out. You would be if you'd come here to, you know, for a bit of winter sunshine and shopping and suddenly find yourself caught up in this. Naturally, you're going to be pretty unhappy and wondering how you're going to get home. But for residents here, it's a whole different calculus. And most people I know are firmly staying put, albeit assessing, you know, hour by hour, the information. In terms of me and my family, we've had cases packed for the last 36 hours. If I'm getting the timing right there, we packed our bags seriously in the early hours of Sunday morning. And it was just as a precaution. That's a sensible thing to do. You know, I'm a journalist. I have the instinct to stay around trouble, to actually go towards trouble. That's what we do. But I do have two young teenagers to be responsible for. So our bags are there, they're by the door, passports are ready. But at this point, we don't intend to run away. You know, as I say, the vast majority of residents, whilst in no way complacent about this, are pretty pragmatic. This morning, online schooling has begun. I have to hand it to the education authorities here. I mean, how quickly did they get the whole system put in place? You know, no build-up whatsoever like there was in COVID. And yet between Saturday night when this all started and Monday morning, the kids are all in formal lessons with teacher engagement. I mean, that is impressive.
Absolutely. You talked about bags packed and ready to go. The big story over here is that the government finally climbing off the fence-ish are talking about ways to get 94,000 Brits out of the Middle East in its entirety. How easy is it to leave Dubai right now, Isabel?
So I'm very dubious about that figure. There are about 250,000 British citizens who live here permanently. And as I say, I don't think they want to leave. You know, it's a big thing to pack and go. It's, apart from anything else, a right old hassle, you know, on a practical level. What are you going to do? How much stuff are you going to take? How long are you going for? People don't want to leave. Do you bring your pets? What do you do about your the people that may work for you, and so on and so forth? So I think the people who want to get out right now are tourists, understandably. And I don't believe that there are that many tourists in Dubai at this point, although this is still quite high season for tourism. How
do you think the dream, sorry, very quickly, do you think the dream of living there or going there has been shattered by this?
Not at all. Actually, funnily enough, not at all. If the Iranian regime, as we expect, falls, I believe that Dubai becomes ever more attractive because you would have removed the single biggest destabilizing influence in the region. Of course, there's going to be a short-term impact. Of course there is. You know, in reality, the airport's shut.
Yeah.
But for those of us that have chosen to live here, we love this place. We have faith in the authorities here. And I don't see anyone that I know going, oh, my God, I want to leave Dubai. I've made a big mistake. We chose to move to the Middle East. You know, that is an informed thing to do.
Yeah.
You don't move somewhere here across the water from Iran and think, well, nothing could ever happen. Of course,
what's the government's sort of advice to citizens? Is it being switched on and full, or have there been a deathly silence?
They are actually brilliant. Communication is fantastic here. So there's an alert system that is set up to override if you turn your phone off. Because I was thinking last night, I do want to try and get some sleep, but will I get the emergency alerts? And yes, those do come through, and they will warn us and tell us to get down into the basement if there's any real cause for concern. I've only had one such alert myself, but there was another one in other areas of Dubai this morning. And they've also put out a message this morning warning that awful people are already, fraudsters are trying to take advantage of the situation. So we've had an alert from the Dubai police that fraudsters are ringing round citizens and saying, can you please give us all your details? We're the crisis management authorities.
Wow.
You know, so the authorities here are right on it, I would say. And the advice at the moment is basically sort of stay in place. So I have to say, Jeremy, I just went out to get some tea bags. You know, no Brit wants to be left without tea bags.
Love it. What backbone. Now, listen, I want to fire some questions at you, and I wanted to hear from it, but we haven't got an enormous amount of time, but I want to fire something at you. Christian came up with a great idea. Isn't it ironic that as Iranians across the world celebrate the death of that disgusting, evil Ayatollah Khomeini, do you think the left will be actually able to recognise, ironically, that the country they all love to hate, Israel, has actually helped free oppressed Muslims in Iran? That's the irony for us this morning.
Well, don't be silly, Jeremy. They don't deal in facts, do they? They deal in reflexes and a blind ideology. So, of course not. They're not going to recognise any such thing. I'm seeing far too many Labour types, otherwise normally potentially mildly sensible Labour types, still going on about how this conflict, this attack by the US is illegal and unwise and so on. Come on, guys. You know, these people never cease to amaze me.
Well, I don't know if you've heard this, but we'll keep it away from the by-election. But of course, the Greens had their moment in the sun on Friday. I think it's fantastic because I think it highlights just how idiotic they are. We've seen Polanski over the weekend on the television saying, let's cut all ties with America because he's an idiot. But here's the irony. Over the weekend, the Green Party deputy, Mohsin Ali, actually took part in a rally in London in support of the Islamic regime in Iran. And I think that should tell the British people everything you need to know about this bunch of crackpots. I know you said crackheads. You know what I mean, right?
I mean, these people are absolutely unbelievable. Have they not seen the horrific footage and information of the summary executions and hangings of young innocent people in Iran for the crime
if you're watching on screen, there he is, Deputy Leader of the Greens, right in the middle of the screen at the rally. Unbelievable.
That really I do find sickening, and I have to say it is colossally ocean-going levels of ignorance to be celebrated, to be taking that ideological position.
I always want to say to people like him and Polanski and all the people, and I understand the criticism of Trump by some, right? I always want to say, you do realise these mad mullahs in Iran have been sponsoring terrorism across the Middle East for decades. Houthis, Hezbollah, Hamas, ISIS. Go and look in the eyes of the people who lost a child in the Manchester bombings, Mohsin Ali, and then stand at your demonstration because you haven't got a clue about the reality. Even John Healey said they are attacking us. Here's a question for you. Somebody said to me, how long before Iranian men who have got into this country illegally will start attacking us back from within?
Well, that is clearly a concern. We know in the last 2 years there have been attempted and thwarted terror attacks by sleeper cells of Iranian state assets in the UK. Our intelligence services have done a great job of stopping those happening, but we have let in an awful lot of Iranians, many of them by small boat. I think it's the third biggest nationality to come to the UK by small boat. Now, the vast majority of those will be dissidents. We can tell and get a sense of that from the number of anti-regime protesters that have been on the streets of London in recent weeks. But I'm afraid a small number will be likely supporters of the regime, and we don't know what they may get up to in the UK. But I think that hopefully that is not an imminent threat just now. But that, you know, when people say, how safe do you feel in Dubai at the moment? Well, I'm not sure anywhere's that safe under these very febrile circumstances.
Final question. You've been amazing. And that breaking news, Isabel Oakeshott live from Dubai this morning, where large blasts have been heard. I don't even want to get onto the fence sitter that is Starmer. I wanted to ask you something. This morning when we came in, we had news that the Iranians had attacked RAF Akrotiri in Cyprus overnight with drones. You know more about this than me. Doesn't that activate Article 5 of the NATO alliance?
Well, I mean, in theory, it should do. You know, an attack on one is an attack on all. I mean, what I think we're seeing now is definite escalation across so many administrations. And it's, you know, hour by hour, we're having to reassess the overall picture. Where does it end? Any ideas? It ends with the fall of this regime. They cannot withstand the pummeling that they are going to get from so many different quarters at this point. But at the moment, they are like toddlers, very dangerous toddlers having a tantrum. They're chucking stuff around everywhere, and it's hitting even their friends. Listen, so glad that we've got you. We wish you and your family the best. Anything we can do, give us a shout. Isabel Oakeshott, fantastic. Thank you. Talks International Editor live from Dubai. Poppy, this morning, loud blasts. I wanted to ask her personally what it's like, but the reality is, as she said, it's interesting to see how organised the Dubai government are, education-wise and security-wise, and we're floundering around, not knowing what to do.
Well, you know, we're very, very lucky that we're an island in the middle of nowhere, aren't we? Because I just do not trust that we would have the same kind of emergency response to something like this happening. You know, and I think that at the moment the government is scrambling to try and find a way if people do need to be evacuated from Dubai. Hopefully
via Saudi Arabia, they're reckoning.
Yeah, hopefully that won't have to happen, because obviously, you know, the airspace is not reliable at the moment.
Well, 6,000 flights have been cancelled.
Yeah.
Here's another thing, just very quickly for you. The price of crude oil has shot up this morning by 10%. That's going to hit motorists back here. Rachel Reeves has her spring statement tomorrow. She was going to raise fuel duty and make it more expensive for you to drive your bloody car to work if you've got a job, or you can get through the traffic. Do you think she'll do a U-turn or not?
Well, you know,
she's got to, hasn't she?
You know, you've got to. You know what this is going to be an excuse to do? Ed Miliband's going to come out and say, this is why fossil fuels are unreliable. This is why I'm so pro net zero and green energy. I mean, I would expect them to do some kind of reduction in tax to actually make it easier, but that would be the smart thing to do. So maybe the government won't do that.
Are you implying that this government isn't smart?
No, of course it's not smart. I mean, it's really dedicated to spite.
Is there an international law about the cost of fuel or something? Oh, we are following the rules and petrol will stay the same. That speech quickly that he made, honestly, is it me? Do I sound unfair? Why is there nothing about him that I like, respect, or even am interested in?
I find it so difficult to listen to him talk. I find it so hard. Honestly, Kemi deserves a medal for doing it every week at PMQs. I cannot understand how that man was a top lawyer. Every time he opens his mouth, I can feel that, like, my will to live seeping out, you know, through my toes. He is just the most annoying person ever.
There, Poppy.
Tell us what you really think.
Don't you hold back, Pops. Morning, Brian.
Good morning, Jez. I don't want to sound too mean here, but all the expats that ran away from the UK tax system, should they be charged when the UK taxpayers turn up to rescue them? Cheers. Bye.
The boiler room of common sense. This is Talk. across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to 17 minutes to 7. We're live across the United Kingdom. You're waking up to Talk's the home of common sense, of alarm clock Brits. Overnight, Iran has attacked the British military base RAF Akrotiri in Cyprus. We're asking if that's something that you could see as an attack on one of NATO, which means all. Starmer still sitting on the fence. He's allowing at the last minute the Americans to use those air bases, which he refused to as well. But my story this morning, apart from giving you all the information, is that a party that won a seat on Friday, the Green Party, their leaders on television on Saturday or Sunday saying we should cut all ties with America. We need to out these people, OK? And Mohsin Ali, the deputy leader of the Green Party, was seen this weekend on camera at a rally in London in support of an Islamic regime led by an Ayatollah that has sponsored international terrorism across this world for 40 years. Even the Labour Party's Defence Secretary John Healey says, and I quote, the Iranians have tried on 20 occasions to instigate terror attacks on British soil. That's what you get with the Greens. Poppy, we're going to go to America now. We're all over the shop. We're going to Nevada. We're going to say a very good morning to, we'll call her Republican strategist, Amy Tarkadian. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
I'm here with Poppy Coburn from the Daily Telegraph. I want to play you both the clip from Trump late last night. This was him updating the United States people on what was happening. Go.
For the past 36 hours, the United States and its partners have launched Operation Epic Fury, one of the largest, most complex, most overwhelming military offensives the world has ever seen. Nobody's seen anything like it. We have hit hundreds of targets in Iran, including Revolutionary Guard facilities, Iranian air defense systems. Just now it was announced that we knocked out 9 ships plus their naval building, all in a matter of literally minutes. Iran's formerly supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, is dead.
I know it's a very serious moment in history, Amy, but God, he can give a speech, can't he, or not? What's the American people's response to President Trump? We've heard, Poppy and I were talking about it. Is it split down the middle, or are people against it or for it?
Well, I think we all kind of woke up in shock. I know I did. And the fact that this has probably been a long time coming, to be honest. We've had a number of presidents who have appeased the Iranian regime for far too long. And now we have a president who doesn't mince words, doesn't necessarily take no for an answer. And so when he means business, he means it tenfold. And I think this is now the retribution that they're seeing. He doesn't mess around.
He doesn't mess around, Pops. And you know, a lot of people in this country would support that direct action. But you will understand that there are in America, both of you, as many people as there are in the United Kingdom, will see it simply as Donald Trump trying to put his stamp on stuff, irrespective of the loss of life or whatever. But this regime is evil, isn't it? Yeah. And I think, you know, what's important here is that Trump has also vowed that he's going to keep going. This isn't just like a one-off surgical strike. You know, he has warned that they'll, like, the continued leaders within the regime will face certain death, is the words he used last night, which is pretty blunt. You know, you can't really interpret that in any other way. And you can really see the difference in speech between America's allies, you know, not that we've been particularly good allies to America for a long time, where we're talking about international law, we're talking about the reasons why we can't do things, why we can't act. Meanwhile, the president, who is actually in control of the military situation, is just acting, you know, and is getting results for that. So I think the kind of stark contrast of listening to Keir Starmer talk and listening to Donald Trump talk is very depressing as a Brit. I couldn't agree more. From an American point of view, Amy, and you've been critical of Trump in the past, and this probably isn't put in the correct way, but there have been instances in history, Afghanistan, Vietnam, where the Americans have gone in to deal with something and then have done their bit and left, and there's been nothing but chaos after. One of the criticisms this weekend from the other side would be what will happen after these air attacks. Is that a concern for the American people?
Absolutely. And I think, just like you mentioned, as history proves, once we get involved in something, what is the exit strategy? We do not want to remain overseas, forever. When the president actually campaigns and he continues to repeat America first, a lot of us actually firmly believe that. And of course, we don't want to see violence. We don't want to see death. We don't want to be a part of any of that. But and we want to make sure that everyone is peaceful and safe. But we do need to have an exit strategy. And that's where I think you're going to see the biggest debate is, did the president do this lawfully? Did he do it constitutionally? And actually, there are many of those who say, yes, he did, because the president, who is our commander in chief, who does oversee our military, he does technically have at least a 48-hour window to give Congress the heads up that something is going to take place. And it's very minimal. It is supposed to be for short term. But if it does turn into something that's going to be quite lengthy, then he is going to have to go to Congress and ask for permission for an extension.
I'm still recovering from last week when his State of the Union speech, and I thought it was, by the way, this is away from what we're talking about. I thought this was one of the greatest political moments, and people didn't even pick up it. He stood in front, whatever you think of him, and said, if you agree with the following statement, stand up. Is it not right to put American people in front of illegal aliens and the Democrats stay sat down? I would use that as the campaign slogan in the midterms, wouldn't you, Amy? Because it was there. He nailed it straight away.
Well, it was genius on his part, because it was hook, line, and sinker for the Democrats, who sat there pouting, throwing a temper tantrum. Yeah. And that was their right to do so. And then also the 36 members who also had the right to not attend also are going to have egg on their face when the midterms arrive. And so, this is just another area where I think, quite honestly, the majority of Americans see the rationale behind this. They do not want the Iranian people to continue to suffer. We do not want an Iranian regime continuing to lie and move forward with uranium and telling us that they're not going to, build their missile production and their nuclear war production. This is something that has to be nipped in the bud. I think most of the conversation is, how long is this going to go on for? What is our exit strategy? Because we're tired of being drug into being the world's police.
Amy Tarkanian in Nevada, Republican strategist, thank you so much indeed. Agree with everything. And we go into a break. It's 10 to 7. We're live across the United Kingdom. Very quickly, Pops, it's interesting, isn't it? Because the critics of Donald Trump would say, oh, America's the bully. America thinks that it can sort out the world's problems. But when you look at how heinous the regime led by the Ayatollah Khomeini is, not only to his own people, but the terrorist cells he has sponsored, the length and breadth of this world. And I will keep saying, this man and his raid this morning, and she said, but it's not nice, they're attacking us, but Hezbollah have been attacking us for years. And that is financed by Iran. So on the one hand, you've got, actually, should he interfere? But on the other hand, my hand is, at least he's got the balls to do something about making the world a better place, hasn't he?
I don't really believe that Donald Trump is a kind of regime change guy. And I'm not saying that to blindly defend him. I mean, he doesn't have the patience required to do a regime change. What Donald Trump is good at is surgical strikes. He comes in hard, quickly, he gets something done, and then he goes, right, we've just proved that America's strong. Now we're going
to play golf now. Make America great again. And that's the criticism, though, at the same time, right?
And that's a very good point. You could say, that's not how you fix world affairs. But the old way of doing things didn't work either. No. So I do have a feeling that sometimes, and actually John Bolton, who used to work in administration, was saying this at the weekend. You've done the strikes, you've hit the Ayatollah, now it's up for the Iranian people to take their country back.
Absolutely.
America should not be involved in actually doing that. We should now say to the protesters, the people who have bravely given their lives to try and take their country back, this is your opportunity to strike.
This is your moment.
I hope that's what ends up happening.
7 minutes to 7, we're live across the UK. What do you make of it? It's only news in town. New blasts heard this morning across Dubai. We've heard from Isabel Oakeshott, 0344 499 1000, or text to 87222. This is Talk.
think the party is dishonest because they campaigned in different ways to different communities. To woke progressives, they were banging on about trans rights and legalising all drugs, including crack cocaine and heroin, and the idea that they would open the borders and legalise prostitution. So that was the offer to the progressive left. Meanwhile, they're doing campaign literature to the Muslim community, talking about Gaza, not mentioning trans rights, which is anathema.
The UK on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. 4 minutes to 7. We're live across the UK. This is Talk, and you're waking up to the news that Iran has attacked the British military base RAF at Kriteri in Cyprus overnight. What will be the response? Most of you, and a lot of you writing and saying, is that not Article 5 of NATO, where you attack one, you attack the rest? We also reported several breaking news stories of large blasts in Dubai this morning. We spoke to Isabel Oakeshott live from there. She says it is happening, but the government are on it. Poppy Coburn has been here since 6 o'clock. Can we just repeat that? There's a reason, because it's rolling news. I think this point is great, OK? The whole thing, nobody knows what's going on. As Iranians undoubtedly celebrate the death of this vile human being, Ayatollah Khomeini, who has, and I will keep saying it all morning, sponsored almost every terrorist group known to man over the last 40 years. I wonder whether the left in Britain and across the world will be able to recognise that Israel, a country they love to hate, actually helped free oppressed Muslims in Iran.
Yeah.
I think it's the main thing. I really do.
Yeah, and I said earlier on the show, you know, who was standing in solidarity with the Iranian people when it wasn't fashionable for the left to do it, you know, that they were still holding up their Palestine flags? It was the Israelis. You could see it outside the embassy. There were Israeli flags there for weeks and weeks and weeks.
Yeah.
So it tells you everything you need to know about real support, real solidarity, and performative activism.
There's also huge criticism of Keir Starmer. Initially he said, you can't use the bases, we're only doing a defensive thing. Now, despite the fact that his defence secretary, and fair play to John Healey, at the weekend said Iran has plotted more than 20 terror attacks on British soil. Does nobody remember the Manchester bombings, all that sort of stuff? Starmer sat on the fence, but he's just said, oh, we're OK, you can use the bases. He's getting it, as is the deputy leader of the Greens. They had their moment on Friday. Oh, we're the future. We've had Polanski on the television going, let's cut all ties with America. And then Mohsin Ali, the deputy leader of the Green Party, Poppy, on a rally in London at the weekend supporting the Islamic regime in Iran. Wake up, people, to the threat that the Greens are, right?
Yeah, they're not cuddly, OK? They're not tree huggers. They don't even bother talking about the environment now.
I haven't heard a tree.
Yeah, it's got nothing to do with it. It's now just totally mad. The most hardcore. Makes Jeremy Corbyn look like, you know, Pinochet, OK? Seriously. They are completely off the wall now.
Susie on Starmer, good morning.
Good morning, Jeremy. Good morning, Poppy. It's Susie from Hertfordshire. In response to your question, Jeremy, Keir Starmer yesterday, when he was giving his pathetic speech, he couldn't even say Israel. He kept saying America and allied forces. He couldn't even give credit to Israel for everything that they've done. I mean, baby's first poo is stronger than our current Prime Minister. Oh, it's so embarrassing. Anyway, Susie from Hertfordshire, loving your work.
A baby's poo is in fact stronger than our Prime Minister. That is absolutely the line of the morning, isn't it? Now, we had you last week. We didn't have you last week. Are you back on Thursday?
Yes, I will be.
It's double dose of Poppy Coburn. We love having you on. Thank you so much indeed, Poppy Coburn. I need to put Deputy Leader of Reform. No, he's next. Well, she could be. Coughing. I'm coughing. Richard Tice is next, by the way. Love to take their view on everything that's going on. But as I say, we'll break the news, we'll bring you what's happening. The RAF at Kriteri in Cyprus, a British base attacked overnight. Loads of people asking loads of questions. 0344 499 1000. Your text to 87222. Richard Tice on the way, but the news at 7 is next on Talk.
Hello Hello from Crowborough, where the local residents are enraged with what has happened to their community merely overnight, when just 27 single male asylum seeker illegal migrants were bussed into their military training camp. Behind me are local residents, people from all over the country. Shabana Mahmood has said that this is an effective way of getting rid of those expensive, flashy asylum hotels. But unfortunately, these people are still placed within the community.
Whole town is very afraid because these are unvetted men from countries that are, the government warned us not to go to. I've got an 18-year-old daughter and she gets the bus opposite camp. Do you feel safe for her? No, so that will have to stop. Right. We'll either have to wait with her or take her to wherever she needs to go.
The reason we're here today is because I live in Crowborough and my family, I've got a wife and children, and just worried about, my wife walking to work and my sons, walking about. Anything can happen, can't it, that nowadays and age, what's going on, what's happening in this country. So I'm just concerned and frightened,
There was support from other towns, other communities, because of course Shabana Mahmood has threatened other communities, and she said they're going to open site after site after site. Well, I would hope that if she's going to try and do that, she learns some lessons about the way she's done it in Crowborough, because this is not finished. We are not finished objecting to this plan.
Grover says no! Grover says no! Grover says no!
We would urge her to reconsider, and whatever she does, she needs to talk to the people that she's imposing these things on.
If you had a direct line to Keir Starmer and Shabana Mahmood, what would you say to them?
Look after your most vulnerable first. It's your priority to look after your vulnerable.
If they're bringing illegal immigrants into a camp in the dead of night, why are they doing that? They're doing that because it's disingenuous, it's dishonest, it's covert, and they're trying to keep the reality away from the local community of what they're actually doing to us. We've now got to the end of the entrance to the camp, we've got cameras, we've got police drones. It's like a cloud that's come over this community.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, or welcome. This is Talk Breakfast, the home of common sense, the home of Alarm Clock Britain, and you're waking up to the continued fallout from that US and Israeli attack on Iran early on Saturday morning. Overnight, Iran has confirmed an attack on the British military base, RAF Akrotiri in Cyprus. That was around midnight. Many people saying, does that in fact instigate Article 5 of the NATO treaty, which says if you attack one, you attack them all? The UK government, having first sat on the fence under Starmer, we don't want to get involved, begrudgingly last night let Trump and his allies use British bases. They, meanwhile, are scrambling to rescue 94,000 Brits stuck in the Middle East. We spoke to Isabel Oakeshott. Breaking news earlier that several large blasts have been heard across Dubai this morning as retaliatory action from Iran continues. The government has come out and said that the terror threat back here is now under review. I have to salute actually yesterday, because there's a lot of people who are jumping up and down saying that this is outrageous, and I'm going to repeat something that I'm going to say all damn morning, whether people like it or not. Whatever your thoughts on Trump, right? This was the Labour Defence Secretary, John Healey, one of the few Labour politicians I'd give credence to. This was him being honest about the threat Iran has posed to the United Kingdom in the last number of years. Go, John.
20 terror plots directed at Britain, sponsored by Iran. Tens of thousands of young people, protesters, murdered on the streets in the last few months in Iran. 57,000 Iranian drones fired by Russia into Ukraine. Proxy groups that destabilise countries right across the region. Make no mistake, this is a regime that menaces other countries, exports terror, murders its own citizens, and must never be allowed to have a nuclear weapons programme.
So when we saw this over the weekend, the question was, if that's the case, why the hell haven't we stood shoulder to shoulder with the Americans and the Israelis and done something about getting rid of a heinous regime, let's nail this, that has sponsored terrorism the length and breadth of the Middle East and the world for as long as anybody can remember? The Houthis, Hamas, Hezbollah, ISIS. I always want to get people like Corbyn and all those tree huggers who, I mean, including, I should say this, the Deputy Green Party leader, Mohsin Ali, was at a march on Saturday saying, oh, you know, I support the Islamic terror regime. Well, I'd like to take Mohsin Ali and put him in front of parents of victims who died in the Manchester bombings and find out exactly what he thinks and what he's talking about. Honestly, what a... Pete, good morning, help me out.
It was quite joyous this morning, seeing that clips on TV of the Ayatollah's headquarters getting taken out, because in my mind, that's one back for all them kids, right, that these terrorists have killed in this country. This should have been done years ago. I think waiting this long to have done this, I think actually made it worse for the ordinary Iranian people to take control back.
Very interesting. We say a very good morning to the Deputy Leader of Reform UK, Richard Tice. Welcome to Talk Breakfast. How are you?
And wasn't it interesting listening to the Defence Secretary, who I now decide and I'm calling a gutless coward? He's setting out the case against Iran, but wasn't prepared to do anything about it. Oh, no, we must listen to international law, because, of course, the mad mullahs, they listen to international law all the time, as they are. Let's just remind all of your listeners and viewers, Jerry, they are a permanent threat to British citizens and British interests in the UK, around the world. A permanent threat, as extolled by the Defence Secretary just there. Not to mention the fomenting of Islamist ideology on our streets every day, every week, from various Iranian-backed groups. You've talked about the proxies attacking our allies and friends in Israel and beyond. The attacks here in the UK, you talked about the Manchester Arena bombings, and of course the cyber attacks designed to destabilise, to damage, and to undermine us. At every level, this is a once in a 50-year moment, a history-making moment, and we should be standing shoulder to shoulder with the Americans, with the Israelis. That's what I've made very clear over the weekend. Instead now, we've been humiliated as cowards on the international stage that our allies cannot rely upon and cannot trust. And I think that tens of millions of British people will be utterly appalled to be led by such cowardice.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, you know, Starmer, I said it, you know, because of the way that this job has to be done. I said it during the general election. I said it during the by-election. This man has entered to... He tries to please all the people all the time, Richard, and he ends up hiding behind the flag that he calls international law. And you're right, internationally, we're utterly redundant. He sort of begrudgingly said at the end, oh, it's OK, you can use our attacks. Of course, the left will jump up and down, and that's where I want to go with you, because we didn't speak last week after the Gorton and Denton by-election. The Greens had their moment in the sun. But let's call this out for what it is, because I had the displeasure yesterday of tuning into the BBC for 11 minutes and watching Laura Kuenssberg, is that her name, interview Zach Polanski. And I think it is really important to lay out the facts here for people in the United Kingdom. Zach Polanski went on the BBC, of course, and said we should cut all ties with America. That was further exacerbated about an hour later, and here's the irony, the Greens Deputy Party leader, Mohsin Ali, joins a rally in London, there he is on screen, in support of the Islamic regime in Iran. And I want to say this to you, Richard, and to people listening. So these people that want to be taken serious, they've had their moment in their sun, they want a seat, and fair play, that's fine, we'll talk about that in a minute. These people want to cut ties with America. They want to support a regime that kills innocent people on the streets of the United Kingdom. The Green Party are not tree huggers. They're bloody dangerous. That's the truth.
They absolutely are dangerous. And Polanski also called the US and Israel rogue states. They're not rogue states. They are our close friends and allies. And they are doing the world a massive, massive favour by taking on this incredibly dangerous regime, who, let's just remind ourselves, basically want to destroy Israel. They basically want to destroy as much of the Western values as they possibly can. And the reality is that we've tolerated them for far too long, and we should be saying thank you to the US and Israeli leaders for having the courage to do the right thing. Yes, it's in the short term, it's going to be uncomfortable. There's going to be bumps in the roads. That's what leadership is about. It's about taking difficult decisions for the greater good in the medium and the long term. And if we can get rid of this regime, and for sure, who knows exactly what comes next? We don't know. But what we have to do as a collective West is to remove and destroy all military capability. Serious go.
No, absolutely, and I think that's the point, isn't it? I mean, I think most people would hope. I mean, I read that the Shah of Iran's son, who's exiled, the prince, is already garnering support, and we've seen millions take to the streets. The criticism, and you would share this, in the past, said to me by a Republican just now, Amy Tarkanian, is the Americans are quite good at going in and dealing the bloody nose, but it's then the aftermath. We all want the Iranian people to rise up. There's no way that anybody on the left can convince anybody in the world with a brain cell that the Ayatollah Khomeini and his terrorist organised government has anything to do. They don't care about the Iranian people. As you quite rightly said, theirs was about the mass killing as Jews and controlling all the troubles that took place across the world. I've got a great scenario for you, Richard. This will test the political ability. This was written, this is Christian, and I could not agree with him more. He said this to me on Sunday morning. As Iranians celebrate the death of their evil dictator, the Ayatollah Khomeini, don't you think this is one of the most ironic moments? There's the left. Do you think they'll actually recognise the fact that Israel, the state they all hate, has actually helped free oppressed Muslims in Iran, for God's sake? There's the truth.
That is the truth. And let's remember, of course, I mean, there are some 2 million Arabs, Palestinians living in Israel in much greater peace and security than if they were living in Palestine. The reality is that the Israelis, the great Jewish people, they want peace. They want ceasefire. What they don't want is the mad mullahs trying to wipe them off the face of the earth. And quite rightly, they've said enough's enough. And what we must just hope is that essentially the Iranian military capability can be degraded as quickly as possible, and that we can get on top of their drone-making capabilities and destroy that and destroy their launchers and all the institutions around it to give the Iranian people a chance of removing this regime and then progressing from there.
As the new business and trade person for reform, I just wanted to bring something up closer to home, because this is important. The price of crude oil has shot up by 10% this morning. This is going to have a major impact on the motorists in the United Kingdom. Now, old Rachel Thieves has got a spring statement tomorrow. She's made no secret of the fact that she's going to raise fuel duty. Do you think we'll have U-turn number 16, 17 or 4035? I can't remember. Do you think the Labour Party will have to backtrack on the latest ludicrous suggestion?
It's hard to keep up with the insanity of the Labour U-turns, but I mean, actually, the oil price has been gently moving downwards in recent weeks and months, and that, of course, is the primary reason for the decline in inflation. Nothing to do with this government, but because of the impact of things like the decline in gas and oil prices. So, of course, that doesn't suit the Labour narrative, the mad red Ed narrative. Let's see what the Chancellor does. But the key thing is that we must all hope that this, in a sense, this war is able to be conducted and finished as soon as possible, and then instability like the oil prices and others beside will calm down again.
A couple of things I never understood, but I'm beginning to understand. Starmer doesn't like to make any decisions. He still won't prescribe the Islamic Revolutionary Guard as a terrorist organisation. He hasn't even begun to think about dispelling Iranian officials from their embassies in London. I'm guessing if Reform was in government, they'd have done both of those straight away.
Yes, we've consistently said that we would prescribe the IRGC along with the Muslim Brotherhood that is prescribed in many other Gulf countries, by the way, and because they are a dangerous ideology and dangerous people to our values and our interests. And again, it's just a form of cowardice driven out of Foreign Office civil servants as to why we haven't prescribed these terror groups before, and we should get on with it and send a clear message, a clear deterrent, and we should get rid of these Iranian terror groups masquerading as charities and nicey entities here in the UK.
Couldn't agree more. I want to touch upon it. You weren't available last week. I was accused of slight bias in my approach. We know that Starmer's poll rating has slumped on the back of the Gorton and Denton by-election. The critics of reform said, oh, you lost it. I pointed out all Friday that you got locally 29%, the exact number that you got nationally. But there's been a bit of a furore since we broke the story with David Bull on Friday that foreign-born voters stole the by-election, Nigel Farage, allowing non-British citizens into ballot booths. And he says it threatens our democracy. Now, before everybody jumps up and down and says this is crying over spilt milk, this was independently recognised by an organisation that this family voting had taken place. Whatever political party benefited or didn't, that has to be eradicated. And I want to ask you this question, because I know where I stand on this. How can it be that somebody that doesn't speak English can decide who the next government of this country should be?
Well, the point about family voting, it is that it's illegal under UK electoral law. You cannot have two people in the same polling booth with one person instructing the other person how to cast their vote. And what we've discovered is that actually you can be a Commonwealth citizen from a country such as Pakistan, and if you've been in the UK for a matter of a few months, all of a sudden you can register and vote in our elections. Now, I can't go to Pakistan, stay there for a few months, and then suddenly vote in the Pakistani elections, and I wouldn't expect to, and frankly, nor should they. And this is hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of votes, and it's just completely wrong. So Commonwealth citizens should not be able to vote in the UK. Family voting is illegal. It should be properly enforced. The truth is that in the polling stations, the officials did not properly enforce the law. That's the reality. And then you get the issue of postal voting, which often can represent a third of all votes cast in a ballot. And there at home, obviously, essentially, of course, family voting goes on. And that's why postal voting should be reduced to the genuinely disabled and infirm who can't get to a polling station, and those who are overseas, for example, armed forces personnel protecting and defending us. It's as simple as that. So it should be down at 1 or 2% of the electorate.
I mean, I spoke to a couple of your MPs on Friday, and I found myself having to sort of bounce them up a bit. Do you personally see the result in Gorton and Denton as a derailment for reform, or in fact a victory? Because I'm going to give you a precursor on this. Over the weekend, the latest opinion poll put reform back up at 30 from 27, and the Greens and Labour down. So one wants to ask you as Deputy Leader, maybe what went on in Gorton and Denton has resonated with people, and that's actually a good thing.
If you have to look at it, if we got our national average in a very difficult seat for us, where you might expect us to get 20%, not 28, 29%, then actually that shows just how well we did, which means that we are organised. We have got massive commitment from our volunteers and our activists. And that should actually give people heart and reassurance and confidence as we move forwards. And our technology is working well, our data is growing all the time. So we're excited by all of that, and incredibly excited by the momentum we've now got towards the crucial May the 7th elections. And it's only thanks to reform that those elections are going ahead for almost 5 million people, having defeated the government before the legal case.
Couldn't agree more, Richard. Thank you as ever. Great to have you on. Another start to a week. Richard Tice, Deputy Leader Reform, 7:20. If you want to be on 0344 499 1000 in Wales. If we had your show on the BBC instead of all the lefty woke crap, it will go a long way to fixing this country. Ian, I would say this. There is about as much chance of me and the BBC working together as there is of me marrying my second wife again. Did I really say that? Brian, Starmer is weaker than a baby's first poo is hilarious. Well done, that lady, Brian from Dorset. If you didn't hear that earlier, a voice call said, Starmer is weaker than a baby's first poo. Baz is in West Brom. I can't understand why the Iranian regime are bombing UK bases. Starmer is one of their biggest allies. Here, couldn't agree more. Hello to, I just want to read this to Carol in the Northwest. What a pathetic Prime Minister we've got. His number one priority, Jez, is getting the Muslim vote. He puts this ahead of keeping the British people safe. He is a disgrace, and God forbid if we start getting more terrorism attacks now, it will be on him. I don't know how he sleeps at night. Carol, the point is, many people are saying, how many Iranian men have come into England on small boats, we don't know who they are, and have created terrorist cells? But this is my favourite text in the morning from a man with a great name, Jeremy in Exeter. He goes, how strange, Jez, that Corbyn and the Palestinian Action Mob has suddenly taken an interest in Iran. Since December, 30,000 innocent civilians have been murdered by the Ayatollahs. And what have we had? Silence. Now that Israel is involved in removing the terrorist perpetrators, they're on the streets. Oh, I wonder why. Ironically, says Jez, the death rate in Gaza since October the 7th amounts to 80 per day, which is awful. But in Iran since December 2025, guess what, friends? It's 500 a day. And as Jezza says, where are the genocide calls? Absolutely spot on. Morning, Sean.
Morning, Jeremy. Sean from Grimsby. As a former infantryman, I've never been more ashamed of our Prime Minister and of our country at the moment to betray our closest ally in the time of need. You know, Keir Starmer is a modern-day Neville Chamberlain, whose only concern is appeasing Islamists in our own country who hate him anyway. You know, like the rest of us. Even the Islamists don't like him. But he still appeases them. Anyway, Jeremy, great show. Good on America.
Every Monday to Wednesday, midnight until 1, it is Talkback.
Such a shortage of housing. You've got landlords, right, have taken that on board, and it's an absolute disgrace.
Your stories, your opinions, it is your chance to have your say. So they're literally just being rented out as hotels, basically.
Yeah, rent a load of hotels.
Well, that has really shone a light for me.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 7:25. It's Monday, the 2nd of March, the beginning of a new month, of course, and we're waking up to the news that British bases, a British military base, RAF Akrotiri in Cyprus, was bombed overnight in a suspected drone attack. All of the recriminations from the Iranians about that attack at the weekend. Britain has sort of sat on the fence under Starmer. We don't want to be involved. You can begrudgingly use our bases, I suppose. We're going to try and get rid of, or get out 94,000 people stuck in the Middle East. And the government have also said this morning the terror threat is back and we should be aware. I want him to do something. I either want him to say, no, I disagree with it, or I'm going to support it. But no, Starmer does what Starmer also does. So many people responding. But my favourite text of the morning, without any shadow of a doubt, has just come in from Warren in Hull. He says, Jez, I've got to be perfectly honest listening to you this morning. If I was stuck on a desert island with Keir Starmer and a tin of corned beef, I'd actually eat Starmer and talk to the corned beef, because the conversation would indeed be better than it is. Jez, if the regime in Iran falls, says Chris in Northumberland, that would mean that Iran becomes more safe for those coming on the boats claiming asylum, so all the Iranians could go home. That's a very true point. Morning, Steve.
Morning, Jez. This is Stephen Hart. I've got a question for you, mate. How many Iranian terrorist sleeper cells do you think have floated across that channel on small boats in the last couple of years and are now sat up, armed, prepared and waiting for orders from the mullahs? Have a good day, mate. Bye.
It's a thought. We say a very good morning to Dr Alan Mendoza, Executive Director of the Henry Jackson Society and Reform UK's Chief Advisor on Global Affairs. Alan, how are you, my friend?
Very good, Jeremy. How are you?
Good. Great to have you on. What's your take on that? I mean, this is really interesting because a lot of people quite interested are saying, and I get this, you know, we can talk about the attacks and the fallout, but how many retribution, if it happens, could come from within? We could have let, and have in fact let, Iranian men into this country who could right now be organising retaliatory attacks.
Well, I mean, we already know that's the case because since 2022, there have been at least 20 terror plots that MI5 told us had been instigated by the Iranian regime on British soil. Now, that didn't come from nowhere. Those people have been activated here. They've either been infiltrated in or they've been here for some time as sleepers. And there were attempts to use them already. So, yes, we can be certain that there are Iranian terror cells on UK soil. And in some cases, we are aware of institutions that have, close links to Iran, Jeremy, as well in the UK, that have been failed to be closed down over many years. And of course, the IRGC remains unbanned here, despite many other countries having decided it needs to be banned. Your point earlier about action from the Prime Minister is quite interesting, because one of the things he could do quite easily is crack down on the terror threat at home by taking steps against these Iranian-linked entities. But he does nothing. Nothing at home, nothing abroad.
I mean, it's so true. We asked this earlier. He still won't prescribe the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, who have been responsible for repeated attacks on targets all over. He won't prescribe that as a terrorist group. I've no idea why. Poppy Coburn said it might be something to do with the Americans. I don't know. He hasn't expelled any Iranian diplomats. I mean, you would think Russia-Ukraine war, he did it in day one. I don't understand the man's position. He looks feeble. We look feeble on the international stage. Some people will jump up and down and say, oh, we should stand aside from America. Absolutely not. I've spent all morning, Alan. I get the people who go, we don't like war. But I want people to concentrate on what this mad set of mullahs have done for years through sponsoring terrorist groups.
And they have pursued nuclear weapons, which is a major source of instability. They've built up these ballistic missiles that you can now see they're using to drag in loads of countries that have had nothing to do with this conflict at all. And the reason the conflict is extended beyond Iran is because Iran has extended it beyond Iran. This is the greatest source of instability in the Middle East, quite possibly the world right now, the Iranian regime. It needs to be taken out. And of course we should be supportive of those who have decided quite rightly that the international situation needs to be rectified and that the repeated rule-breaking and law-breaking that the Iranian regime does cannot be allowed to continue.
Obviously the criticism will be Trump goes in and then what happens in the aftermath. But I think we have to try and consider right now. Overnight, British military base, RAF Akrotiri, attacked in Cyprus with a drone. I want to ask you this. Many people are saying, rather than concentrate on the terror threat here, you have to answer this question. Is that not an attack on NATO? Article 5, does that not necessitate one attacked, all attacked, they all head in now?
Well, you can make the argument that that's possible. At the very least, though, there should be a British response, should there not? I mean, a sovereign base has been attacked, and we're sort of just shrugging it off, going, no, we'll be okay with helping the Americans with defensive strikes. I said yesterday when I heard that the Defense Secretary was refusing to answer whether we would respond to such strikes, I said the message needed to go right loud and clear to Tehran that if it strikes any British service people or civilians, there will be an immediate reprisal in kind by the UK forces against Iranian military targets. That won't happen under this government, and it is a colossal failure of national defence that Iran thinks it can strike us at will, and we will do nothing in response.
How does that make us look? No, but I thought, right, forget the international stage, Alan, for a moment. I thought one of the primary not concerns or objectives, but rules for a government is to protect your own people. You're not protecting them by not doing anything about the boats that are bringing Iranian men in, and now you're not doing anything about taking action against a country that thinks it can just bomb us in Akrotiri when we didn't. I mean, there's the irony. Starmer, I don't want to get involved. He hasn't got involved, and a British military base is being bombed.
Well, here is the reality of the situation. The Iranian regime hates the UK. It's always hated the UK. It has, called for death to the UK alongside death to the US and death to Israel for as long as it's been in existence. If you remember in the past, it's kidnapped our sailors, it's targeted our ships, it's attacked our troops in Iraq. I mean, at various points, this regime has shown its true colours regarding Britain. Now, I agree that we didn't need to be part of the original strike force against Iran. Let the Americans and Israelis do it. We didn't need to be part of that. And actually, there's an argument we're not needed in that respect. But when we are coming under attack and it becomes a question of national defence, we need to respond. That's an entirely different situation to us mounting offensive operations. This is a requirement to defend our people, and the message needs to go loud and clear to Iran that it will not be tolerated.
That's not going to happen. I mean, you say it wasn't needed. I would like us to stand shoulder to shoulder because there's so little that I can respect about this country anymore and this government, but there we go. Can you do me a favour before we finish, Alan? Fascinating comment you made before. You can confirm on this show this morning that you believe there are Iranian sleeper cells in the UK caused by small boats, and actually we could have trouble from within.
I don't know whether they're caused by small boats, because these people may have been in the country for a very long time and may even have come in legally. So I don't think you can make the assessment there were only illegal parts to this, but definitely there are Iranian sleeper cells here. That is, we've seen that because of the volume of terror plots over the last few years that have come from Iran. So we know that's the case. The thing the government should be doing right now is closing all those institutions in the UK that have got links to Iran, to the Iranian regime, I mean, because that's a powerful sign to Iran to say, we're on to you, we're not going to let you organise trouble from within the UK.
Should the UK raise the terror threat level? This was a story coming out overnight. It's now under review. The current level is substantial. It could be raised to severe, meaning an attack is highly likely. I guess that's always a problem. Do you warn people and then they get scared, or do you ignore it? What's your view?
Well, that is a question for the intelligence services. You and I don't have access to their precise intelligence. The intelligence services will act according to what they deem the threat level to be. And if there is a threat, I'm sure they will raise, imminent threat, they will raise the terror level to a point where they can judge that that is appropriate as a response.
Are they allowed to do that themselves, or do they have to go through a Prime Minister who doesn't usually take advice from MI5 and MI6? What happens with that?
On this, the Prime Minister would be foolish not to take advice, but it is normally the security services who will declare this and go, this is the situation. It would be absolutely extraordinary, Jeremy, if a Prime Minister would countermand what the intelligence services were saying on such a subject.
I don't want to be accused, Al, because we'd probably bark up the same. I don't want to be accused of being biased this morning, but you've just said it would be ludicrous, absolutely, but then he ignored the security services over Peter Mandelson, didn't he?
Well, that's a very good question as to how that works. But I think there's a material difference between a security clearance and imminent terror plot in the country. I mean, there's a difference in kind between the two things. Like I said, it would be absolutely extraordinary to change that, and the intelligence services lead on these subjects anyway. For the Prime Minister to change that would be a remarkable moment. There'd be no benefit to him to do that.
Absolutely great to have you on, Alan. Really, really appreciate your time this morning. Excellent. Dr. Alan Mendoza, Executive Director of the Henry Jackson Society and Reform UK's Chief Advisor on Global Affairs. Global Affairs, those are big trousers. 7:35, morning to Robbie in Newcastle, waking up. Where have you been, you lazy git? Morning, Pauline.
Good morning, it's Pauline from Salford. When are these lefties going to realise that Iran it was an evil regime? Do they not understand anything? Do they not see the facts? And Starmer should be absolutely, utterly ashamed of himself because he's just not putting us first. He's putting the Muslims first. Have a good day.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to Busy Old Morning, 7:35. We're live across the United Kingdom. You're waking up to Talk's the home of common sense. It's the home of free speech. Overnight, Iran has attacked the British military base, RAF at Kriteri in Cyprus. Many people are saying, does that mean that we should instigate Article 5 of NATO, which says, and I quote, if you attack one, you attack them all? Well, it won't happen because we've got a Prime Minister who's sat firmly on the fence. I don't want to be involved in initial attacks with Israel and America. Not that he mentioned Israel, despite the fact he's got a Jewish wife, and then he begrudgingly at the weekend, and this point has to be made, allowed the Americans to use the military bases. Nobody likes what's going on, but the reality is the mad mullahs of Tehran, and I'm going to keep saying this, have been financing terror. Should cut all ties with America and sit down and talk to these people. You think that's bad? What's even worse is his deputy, Mohsin Ali, joined a London rally in support of the Islamic regime. So when you think the Greens are cuddly and you want to vote for them because you're not bothered about free legal heroin or open borders, these people support mullahs who bomb kids at Manchester Arena. Sorry, but it needs saying. We'll go live to London, I think College Green. Don't know if it's raining or sunny, but he's a hard man. James Cartledge, Secretary of State for Defence. Good morning,
Hello.
James. How are you?
I'm okay. How are you? It's beautiful and sunny.
It is beautiful. I'm sort of angry, but then I'm always angry when I hear about Starmer. Overnight, RAF at Kriteri in Cyprus, James, and I'd love to hear, as the Shadow Secretary of State from Defence, what would have been your approach to what happened on Saturday? Do you think that this country has been left aside now by Trump because we're so completely incapable of making a decision on the international stage?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on your programme, and I think it's absolutely extraordinary, the situation. You know, don't forget, so June last year, when the Americans with Israel bombed the Iranian nuclear facilities, I did the morning round, and we got the same words from Labour, which was that we didn't participate. When asked repeatedly, do they support it, they couldn't answer. We were very clear that we did. On this occasion, weeks ago, I said, if the US asked our permission, and hypothetically we were in government, for such a strike as this that's been carried out against Iran, these set of strikes, then we would grant that permission because it was in our interests, because that threat is against us and our allies. We were very, very clear on that. Now, with the Prime Minister, yet another U-turn. He's changed his position. Very weak leadership when this country needs strong leadership, given the threats we face. So I think it's a very disappointing situation. But now that the Prime Minister has sort of moved a little bit, we want to see him go further. And I think we need to see really clearly exactly how he's going to stand up, protect our bases in the area, you know, deploying RAF assets and so on, but also more plans about how he's going to protect British people in the region. There's thousands of them, tourists, people who are there on business, etc., how he's going to support them. Let's talk about the political connotations of this, and it has become a bit of a bugbear for me. You know, democracy's democracy. I sat and watched the Gorton and Denton by-election, and Hannah Spencer won, and she's a new MP. Does it not frighten you that somebody like Zach Polanski, that the mainstream media are suddenly fating as the answer to everybody's political things, is on Kunzberg at the weekend saying that we should cut ties with America over the killing of Iran's supreme leader, and that the deputy leader, Mohsin Ali, goes on a march saying we support a regime that kills, maims and destroys the lives of thousands. That's the reality, James, isn't it? I'm afraid I was struggling to hear that one, Jeremy, but I think you're asking about the Green Party and Polanski, their leader.
Roman.
And I mean, look, just to say, to have a party that's won a by-election with such a majority when their policy is to withdraw from NATO and to give up our nuclear weapons, when we are being openly threatened by Moscow, by Putin, with their Orezhnik, this hypersonic nuclear weapon, apparently, I find that absolutely extraordinary, and it is deeply worrying. And of course, the reason is because, as you say, they're playing all kinds of populist tunes, shall we say, that most of the things they say are totally unfunded. I think their understanding of borrowing is pretty limited, that basically they'd go into government and borrow as much as they could. They'd wake up very quickly to the reality of the world, but unfortunately it'd be too late for the country by then. So, you know, I've got a job, I'm very conscious of that. I've got a job as a Conservative in the shadow cabinet to explain why the country needs to focus on being strong, investing in the armed forces, not just keeping but strengthening our nuclear deterrent, because we live in very, very serious times, and we should be supporting our allies, the United States, alongside Israel in the action they're taking. We should be standing strong in the world, and that means Tuesday, tomorrow, the spring statement that I hope the Chancellor announces more funding for defence.
Couldn't agree more, James. Thank you. Sound issues this morning, but always good to have you on. James Cartledge, Shadow Secretary of State for Defence. Thank you very much indeed. 18 minutes to 8. Let's go live to the Deputy Political Editor of the Sun newspaper. Busy old morning. Ryan Saby. Morning, Ryan. How are you?
Good morning, Jeremy.
I want to try a different tack. We've talked non-stop since we started the show about, you know, the threat of Iran, the military base overnight in Cyprus. Christian said something earlier which I think is genius, and I'd love your take on this. As Iranians, and we know this, we've read it in your paper this morning, The Sun, celebrate the release, well, the release to freedom, but the death of that evil dictator, Ayatollah Khomeini. Don't you think the irony is that the left, who absolutely hate Israel with a passion, should actually be thanking Israel for being part of an operation that has freed oppressed Muslims from years of hell in Iran, Ryan?
You would have thought so. I mean, let's just see what their response is on that today. But as you say, we've seen those pictures. We've had people celebrating on the streets over the past 20 or 48 hours or so. Let's just, you know, we'll hear the usual rabble of left MPs talking about this, but you do wonder whether there will be any hint of praise, as you say, for that freedom.
If you look at the pictures, I know your thing's a bit dodgy as well. You can see Iranian and Jewish flags together there on the streets of London celebrating. And Ryan, my point is genuinely here that you know, whatever your political persuasion, our Prime Minister, yet again sitting on the fence, is now being attacked at all sides. I mean, presumably you're supposed to protect your people. A military base attacked overnight in Cyprus. Doesn't that instigate Article 5 of NATO? Doesn't everybody have to pile in now?
You would have thought so. I mean, technically, you would think you know, that's correct. Yesterday was an incredible day, really. We had John Healey, Defence Secretary, very well respected, couldn't really answer the question whether the attacks on Iran were legal, whether, you know, Britain sort of backed it in that respect. Britain really was sitting on the fence for a large part of yesterday. Couldn't really say whether, you know, they backed it, whether they thought they were legal or not. And it took until, you know, the change of legal opinion for Sir Keir Starmer to say, right, we will now let the US use our bases, but only for defensive actions rather than offensive. And I think there was a big
international law. Doesn't that destroy us internationally?
I think it does damage our reputation. I think one thing that Keir Starmer seems to be doing, he seems to be sort of, you know, walking in lockstep a little bit with, you know, France and Germany, and using that as a powerful bloc. Now, that does work sometimes, but when you need to be nimble, you need to be on your feet and adapt to calls from Donald Trump. You know, for several weeks, I think they've been trying to use Diego Garcia, use RAF to launch such strikes. And that legal opinion just wasn't, you know, just wasn't with, you know, Keir Starmer didn't think that opinion was right. So it's taken, you know, a change of legal opinion for him to actually change his mind and let America use our
It's my point, though. It's all, there's nothing guttural about him. There's no DNA. He doesn't go. There's nothing like, I think this is wrong. Like, he won't, you know, prescribe the Islamic Revolutionary Guard as a terrorist group. He won't throw out Iranian diplomats and officials from their embassies, which I would have done within 2 minutes of 6 a.m. on Saturday. But he won't do that. He sits on that fence. And truthfully, we become more humiliated. He doesn't know. I just... Honestly, and just very quickly, your comment on the Greens, their deputy leader at a rally, you know, supporting an Islamic terror state. What does that tell you about that party, in truth?
I think Tom Tugendhat was very quick out there to condemn those actions. You know, on the day that those attacks on Iran were happening, you had, you know, the Green deputy leader. They've just now, you know, they've now got a decent chunk of MPs in Parliament, and just a few yards from our Parliament, you had their deputy leader protesting in Whitehall, demonstrating with that group. I mean, it was actually, staggering to watch. And you can, that condemnation of that yesterday was absolutely right.
Good man, Ryan. Thank you so much indeed. All of the information you need, follow in the Sun newspaper. It's amazing each and every day. Thank you, Ryan Saby, Deputy Political Editor, 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. Rob in Newcastle, good morning.
Morning, Jez. England became a much more dangerous place than it already was with all of these terrorist attacks that our lot are trying to fight off daily, because remember, we've got lots of sleeper cells here. And as you can see by the marches, remember, there's many people in Iran who don't want that to be changed also. So it's not a complete blanket sweep, although undoubtedly they are the troublemakers of the world, the people who've had that dirty, bloody handprints on everything that's wrong and goes wrong, supporter of every terrorist organisation that ever was. So the right thing's being done, about to stop them getting a nuclear weapon. But everybody needs to raise their head and remember what's happened and understand that MI5 will be running around dizzy trying to protect us all and save us from the nutcases that are in this country and that are coming daily in dinghies. So keep your head up, everybody.
We genuinely are on resignation watch. There is absolutely no doubt about it. Labour MPs, they say, listen, Keir, your position is untenable. This is all about appointing that rat, Peter Mandelson, who faces a criminal investigation.
Can Keir Starmer survive the Mandelson scandal? We have breaking news for you. We've just been talking about, of course, Morgan McSweeney, the Chief of Staff. We've now had another resignation from Number 10. And Keir Starmer's Director of Communications, Tim Allen, has now also resigned. The plot is thickening. The noose is tightening.
UK on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 10 to 8. We're live across the United Kingdom. Of course, the main news is those Israeli and US attacks on Iran at the weekend, which took out that evil tyrant, the Ayatollah Khomeini. Just want to take 10 minutes and change tack to a story that will dominate in its own way for years and years to come. The royal fallout from Andrew Mountbatten Windsor's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, Peter Mandelson. Both of their trials, it was said at the weekend, could last for a year. We're delighted to be joined by the main man, author of Entitled The Rise and Fall of the House of York. He's back. Good morning, Andrew Loney. How are you?
Good morning. I'm very well, thanks. Nice to be back.
It's been 3 days. I get these moments where I think, where's Loney been? What would he say? I'm just moved by a few stories this morning. I don't know how much more Andrew Mountbatten Windsor can take, but Exile Man had a rare visitor to his temporary home at Sandringham at the weekend, the King's domestic chaplain. The headline is Confess Any Sins. The ex-Duke sees the Sandringham priest a few hours before the King. What's he, confessing his sins, Andrew, do you think, or looking for divine inspiration of how to get out of the hole he made?
Well, who knows? I mean, he may be finding religion now I think it's just they've taken pity on him. I mean, no one else is visiting him, so I suppose the local vicar should.
Do you think that, genuinely, I like your point, because we read about Fergie, she's in some wellness clinic, talking about mental illness and everybody's out to get me. You've got to paint the picture of this guy sat on his own in Sandringham, and I'm going to ask the question that everybody will probably get upset about, and you can dump it if you want. I suspect there are many people who are feeling he's so ostracised he can't even go horse riding. Are they worried about his mental health and what he might do to himself?
Well, that's been a message from the palace for a long time, even when my book came out in August, that he was on suicide watch. I mean, everything I'm told from people close to him until very recently was that he still hasn't really sort of understood the seriousness of what he did and his position. He's more concerned about where he's going to park his car than he is about the problems he's in. So I don't really see that at all, but it may be trying to send out a narrative that this man has repented and we'll see him washing up dishes in the local all folks home.
I love what some people will call your cynicism, because I'm totally with you, Andrew. I am all for, and I've said it for many, many years, the fact that we now in this country talk about mental health is great, but let's fully accept that there are people who now use that as a tactic. He is a manipulative, arrogant bully. OK, that is a known fact, right? His ex-wife will do anything for a few quid. It would be terrible. You know, if that happens, then yes, of course, people are going to jump up and down. But, you know, you should be you should be saying sorry. You should be, I mean, we read stories about him every day, still demanding a chef and a valet and being called sir. I wonder whether he's got any possible idea of what he's done. I doubt it. That's the impression I get. I could be wrong.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I think Fergie's is exactly the same. I mean, she's railing at people, thinking that she's been hard done by, and she will come and flutter her eyelids on some chat show and, as I say her mother abandoned her, and this explains everything. But these are just two immoral people who've been caught and are finding new ways of getting around the problems they're in now.
Some news at the weekend as well, and I think this is fascinating. You were the first person to turn the spotlight on the daughters, Eugenie and Beatrice. Everybody initially, I think, was talking about how difficult it must be. I acknowledge that, and how the king was quite wanted to be seen to be protecting them, that they are not their father. But you touched upon several examples of how they were implicated by this, both in terms of travel and in terms of money. Over the weekend, they've been banned from Royal Ascot. Now, to a lot of people, that might mean nothing, but that is a massive snub, isn't it, Andrew?
Yes, and I mean, the fact it's been so public and it's been so early. I mean, either the king has had some information about the daughters and therefore he's realizing he does need to distance himself. I think William wanted an audit of their business activities and they refused to do that. Or it may be just precautionary, but it seems the fact that it's so public, I think suggests that they are aware of information that may come to light. I mean, there are 300 mentions of the woman in the Epstein files that have been released, and I've certainly got a lot of material, much of which I didn't use in the book because I was told to lay off the daughters. So, they're said to be anxious about my paperback, and they have good reason to.
Well, give me something there, help me out. You were warned not to. Why? Because of their mental health?
I think the feeling, a year ago when I was delivering the book was that we should focus on Andrew and Sarah, and the girls were collateral damage. But I think it's become clear that it's very much part of the same business model, the two daughters. I mean, they've just been taken on the baton, and they're just carrying on with the contacts the parents made, particularly in the Middle East. And I think this is the concern, that they're using their royal titles to make money for themselves in terms of their own businesses.
I always go by a good mate of mine, Rob, and other people who watch and listen to the show. And I remember the first day I had you on, I was saying, oh, come on. You know, they were taken to Jeffrey Epstein's house when they were 8 and 6, and you jumped in and went, no, Jez, they were 20 and 22. And there is certainly the belief that there is more to this. But the problem is, if he's had information, the king, and has banned them from Royal Ascot, that is going to turn the spotlight back on him, and the accusation that is being levelled at the king, which has led you and I to say he might well have to abdicate or even talk to the police. How much does he know about the past that he's kept quiet, Andrew?
Well, I think he knows an awful lot, as do other members of the royal family. I was talking over the weekend to a long-time source and very close to the royal family, and they were discussing it with another member of the royal family 20 years ago, the problem of Andrew and some things he was up to. So I do think this is going to be tricky for them, because they are going to have to come clean at some point about what they knew and why they didn't do anything.
And that's the point. How much did they know and how much are they prepared to give away? I'm completely with you about how transparency is going to take over. Can I just touch upon William very briefly? I read a couple of articles, one by Amanda Platell in the Daily Mail at the weekend, saying that, you know, he is, if you like, the clean slate. The king should probably go and, as we said, cite the illness and he should take over. She was implying that William is quite critical and implying that, you know, he needs to step up. Yes, he's got his life with his family. He's been through the trauma of his wife having cancer, and nobody can put any, you know, time scale on that. But his father still does 500 engagements a year. He does less than 150. And she was sort of questioning whether he had not the stomach for it, but whether this desire to make it. We basically need to kick up the backside. Where do you stand on that? I thought it was quite an interesting article.
Yes, well, I think the feeling is, you know, that he's not quite ready to step up. I think the line now is that Charles is a bit like Keir Starmer. He's going to be the punch bag who absorbs all the scandals, and then someone can come in with the clean slate later.
That's an interesting analogy. No, give it a bit of time, let all the stuff fall on Charles, and then he steps aside out of duty and out of the rightness for the crown, right?
Yes, he's the lightning conductor, and in fact, you know, his illness may overcome that. So I think that's possibly it. But I think one of the reasons that William's spending a lot of time with his family is he knows that, you know, he may not be able to do that later on. But I think the feeling is he isn't ready for it, both mentally and in terms of the preparations, and therefore Charles has got to keep going a little bit longer. I think what really worried me was the now putting out the line that this investigation will take a year. The circumstances of Andrew's appointment were so vague that I don't think he could be tried as a public servant. And I think this may be the way that Andrew avoids facing justice, that in the end, legal technicalities prevent him from being charged. And I think also a fascinating thing that the Americans were trying to get cooperation from the British years ago under the Mutual Legal Assistance Treaty, and the British weren't playing ball with them. Now the British are trying to get material from the Americans, and they won't play ball this time. All rather childish. But
I'd love to talk for another hour. I have to move on, but I will say I don't think this is going away, Andrew, and because of you primarily, I think questions will continue to be asked. We appreciate you so much being on. Andrew Loney, author of The Rise and Fall of the House of York. Fantastic book. Go and buy it. Almost 8 o'clock. The news at 8 is next on Talk Breakfast.
Fancy returning to the front line as Foreign Secretary?
I am going to return. I am going to return. To the people from whence I came. Hello, I'm Peter Mandelson, and I'm proud to serve as His Majesty's British Ambassador to the United States of America. I feel a tremendous sense, a profound sense of sympathy for those people, those women who suffered as a result of his behaviour and his illegal criminal activities. And secondly, I regret very, very deeply indeed carrying on that association with him for far longer than I should have done.
The Ambassador has repeatedly expressed his deep regret for his association with him. He's right to do so. I have confidence in him, and he's playing an important role in the UK-US relationship.
Mandy's out 4 decades and 3 scandals, or 3 that we know about. Guess what? Number 10 knew all about it. They knew that he lived in Jeffrey Epstein's flat.
Mandelson resigned from the Labour Party late last night over the allegations of $75,000 set of payments to him from Epstein while he was business secretary, $10,000 to his now husband, a photo of him in his pants. This isn't just bad form. There are strong arguments here for him to be facing investigation over misconduct in public office.
I knew of his association with Epstein, but had I known then what I know now, I'd have never appointed him.
breaking news that Lord Mandelson, Peter Mandelson, has now been arrested. So Mandy and Andy have now both had their collars felt. This is the establishment, the British establishment on trial. Came to us around about 5 o'clock when we learned that we saw footage of Peter Mandelson being led out of his London home in very exclusive Regent's Park by 3 coppers.
Now we have all these allegations, we have all the documentation related to those allegations, which Downing Street is being forced to put out. The first tranche of it will be early next month.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very good morning, welcome back. You would talk, it's the home of common sense, and it's the home, of course, of Alarm Clock Brits. And there's only one real story in town after those US and Israeli attacks on the despot, the Ayatollah Khomeini, over the weekend. It resulted in his death. Iran is retaliating across the Middle East. It's a powder keg. People on all sides are queuing up to make their assumptions. Starmer steadfastly sitting on the fence. We're not getting involved offensively. Thought you're supposed to protect your own people. We will eventually let you use the army bases, the naval bases, the RAF bases, but at the end of the day, it's all about international law. It's interesting, this, isn't it? Yesterday, the Defence Secretary, I don't know if you heard this, John Healey, went on television and he admitted the threat that Iran poses to the United Kingdom. Let's hear from John Healey.
20 terror plots directed at Britain, sponsored by Iran. Tens of thousands of young people, protesters, murdered on the streets in the last few months in Iran. 57,000 Iranian drones fired by Russia into Ukraine. Proxy groups that destabilise countries right across the region. Make no mistake, this is a regime that menaces other countries, exports terror, murders its own citizens, and must never be allowed to have a nuclear weapons programme.
So if that's the case, and that's the Defence Secretary of the Labour government, without being accused of being a warmonger, why weren't we shoulder to shoulder? The truth is, our Prime Minister is fence-sitting. We are just irrelevant on the international stage, and I'm going to do this for a reason, for all the people who have been telling me for days, you know, Reform are over, the Greens are the future. Let's look at it. They won that by-election last week, fair and square. We did the whole show. But let's just look at the Greens' response, because suddenly Zach Polanski, old hypnotits as I call him, he's on the front of every newspaper and every mainstream media interview. Went on Kunzberg on the BBC at the weekend and said, and I quote, we should cut ties with America over the poor killing of this man. Really? And there, if you're watching on YouTube, even worse, is their deputy leader, Mohsin Ali, at a rally in London in support of an Islamic regime in Iran. Can I just repeat something? And I'm not having a go, right? This is a regime that has sponsored terrorism, Houthis, Hamas, ISIS, Hezbollah, for years. Their view and aim is to destroy the Jewish race. So we're talking about politicians who think that's okay. Go and, I want to say to Zach Polanski, I said it twice already this morning, mate, no apology. Go and look at the parents of those kids that were killed in the Manchester bombings by ISIS. Because guess what, mister? That was financed by the Iranian government. Love or loathe Trump, he made a decision. We spoke earlier to Isabel Oakeshott, who lives in Dubai and had woken up to large blast this morning. Let's replay it. Morning, Isabel.
There were a series of very loud blasts in the area of Dubai that I'm based in. That's in the Marina area. It's a very touristy area, actually, and also very popular residential place. And those blasts were the loudest we've heard yet, but equally, we are reassured that they are most likely the sound of interception by the UAE's quite sophisticated THAAD interception kit, that is the terminal high altitude area defense system that the authorities have here. And it is one of the most advanced defense systems in the world. And one of the effects that it has is when there is an intercept, it can create a kind of what they call a canyon effect, so a kind of reverberation that makes it sound as if that activity is actually a lot closer than it is. So just because there were quite loud noises here in the marina and more widely in built up areas of Dubai, that does not mean that there has been any kind of strike anywhere around here.
We'll keep updated with Isabel in Dubai over the next few days. Let's shoot to Cyprus. Mary is on the phone. This is an extraordinary call because, Mary, you're in an area where last night the British military base, RAF Akrotiri, was attacked, and your son is in Dubai. Good morning.
Good morning, Jeremy. Yes, my son went down to Dubai last Monday for an interview. He stuck down there in the marina area that Isabel's just been talking about. But I have to say that what she said sort of calmed me down a bit because, she's such a lovely lady and she talks such common sense that it's nice to listen to her.
Have you spoken to your son? Has he described what's going on?
I spoke to him. I spoke to him a couple of days ago. Apparently, normally he and I communicate on WhatsApp, but WhatsApp something you can't do in Dubai. I don't know why. So we actually had to speak on the phone, which was nice. But thankfully, he sounded very calm. But he's a pilot. I said, oh, for God's sake, get an aeroplane and go.
I don't think anybody's flying. And what about you in Cyprus? We woke up to news that the British RAF military base at Akrotiri was attacked by a suspected drone over the weekend. What's the feeling on the ground in Cyprus?
Well, we live about 20 kilometres, actually, from Akrotiri, but I won't be going to the beach today at Ladies Mile because I don't know what's going to happen. The beach at Ladies Mile is at Akrotiri, so we won't be going there. But we live about 14 kilometres from the top of Troodos. I don't know if you know Cyprus, but there are communication sort of like big golf ball things on the top of Mount Olympus. So I suppose we could be in the firing line for those.
And just very quickly, I'm asking everybody this. Where's your head at with all of this? What's your view of this whole situation, very briefly?
Well, I think that Trump has done, and Israel have probably done the right thing. But of course, it's all us sort of civilians and normal people who are surrounded by it that, we all want to be all our loved ones together, don't we? Well, it can't happen, can it? But I have read, I don't know if it's true, but I have read that Dubai, because the airport is full of people waiting to go, that they're going to go back in hotels, and the hotels have been told to send the bill to the rulers of Dubai, not, so that people don't have to pay.
It's interesting. Are you scared, final question, living in Cyprus at the moment?
No, I've lived in, worst place, I lived in Bahrain, so there was a war going on in 1967, and I was 6 months pregnant, and I had to leave. Otherwise, I wouldn't have got back to England to have the baby. My then husband was also a pilot, and he wasn't even at home. So people were leaving and...
Bless your heart. Mary, keep strong. Thank you for your call. Mary in Cyprus, her son in Dubai, Isabel in Dubai. Good morning, Perry.
Morning, Jeremy. With all this talk now of you've been taking revenge on countries like us, these boats need to be stopped today. Absolutely stopped today. If there is a terrorist attack and it gets back to that someone come over on a boat to kill British people on British soil, Keir Starmer should face a trial. He should go up before the courts. The man is a traitor if he lets British people die on British soil by not stopping the boats.
Couldn't agree more. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. Let's say a very good morning to the chief political writer at Spiked Online, my old mate Brendan O'Neill. Brendan, good morning.
Hi, Jeremy. How you doing?
I'm good. I want to try with you something slightly different, my friend. We've talked about all morning about Cyprus, and does that mean the instigation of Article 5 of NATO because one person's attacked? We've talked about Starmer sitting on the fence. We've talked about U-turns. I want to put the shine a light a minute on the response to this. And I understand there will be people who jump up and down like Corbyn saying, war's a terrible thing, we shouldn't do this. And I understand that there is fear. I've had a couple of my teenage kids over the weekend, and let's say this about Gen Z, they've never seen this. And I'm sure for many people it's terrifying. But let's talk about a party and their approach, which has been highlighted by the I would say the liberal media over the weekend. The Greens won an election victory last week in Gorton and Denton. We did the show you were on Friday. Fair's fair. We won't talk about the complaints. We'll just say fair's fair. But let's talk about a party that apparently is gaining in popularity and wake up a few people. On the BBC's Koonsberg show yesterday, Zach Polanski said we should cut ties with America. That's the first thing. We should leave NATO, give up all of our nuclear weapons, and we should fly to Russia and have a nice chat with Vladimir Putin. On top of which, and there's the footage on the screen, the Deputy Leader Mohsin Ali joined a rally in London in support of the Islamic regime. And I just wanted to put this to you, because you're an intelligent man. As Iranians in their thousands celebrate the death of a man who sponsored terrorism across the world, do you think people like Mohsin Ali or Zach Polanski or Jeremy Corbyn or the left in its entirety will ever admit the fact that Israel, the country they absolutely loathe, helped free oppressed Muslims in Iran? Brendan, that's the truth, isn't it?
That is the truth, and they will never admit that because they hate Israel more than anything else in the whole world. They're obsessed with Israel and how much they loathe it. But, you know, you're absolutely right to raise this issue about the Green Party because it is despicable. And across the left, in fact, they're crying more tears over the Ayatollah than they did over the tens of thousands of people he killed in Iran just last month. You know, where were their emergency protests for the men and women who were being slaughtered in their thousands by the theocratic regime?
Genocide, some would say. You call it out in Gaza. Why don't you call it out in Iran?
Exactly. And I'm sorry, but if you go on the street and say hands off Iran when the regime is under attack, but you said absolutely nothing when the regime was killing its own people, you're not pro-life, you're not pro-justice, you're not pro-peace, you're pro-regime. You are in favor of the theocratic regime that is a brutal regime and which spreads terror around the world and which has targeted British people and British soldiers and which invaded Israel, by the way, on 7th of October 2023 with its proxy army of Hamas and which kidnapped British Jews. You're in favour of that regime. This is the stark, honest truth of what we're witnessing right now.
It's extraordinary, and let's bring it to Starmer. I mean, for a man who, well, I don't know, I watch him speak. He's obsessed with international law, right? You know, I thought the first duty of a Prime Minister was to protect your people and your country. So he doesn't want to stand shoulder to shoulder because that will upset those on the left. Then eventually, you know, he sends out his defence secretary who freely admits there were 20 examples of terror plots in the United Kingdom. Still won't commit to stand shoulder to shoulder. And then later in the day goes, oh, you can use our bases. Is not the truth that he has yet again humiliated us on the international stage to the point where we are fast becoming pointless?
You know, I don't even know if the word humiliation is strong enough for what we've seen over the past couple of days. You know, this is the most important geopolitical event in a very long time. And people will have all sorts of opinions about it. That's absolutely fine. But for the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom to sit on the fence, to and ah, to not know what to say, and for a while to say absolutely nothing, that is pathetic beyond belief. It really has exposed the absolute weakness of this government and the weakness of Britain as long as we're being ruled by them. So, you know, Starmer, we all make fun of Starmer, the robot, the technocrat, the grey politician. But now we see the truth of it, which is that he is a moral coward. And he refuses to take a line on one of the most important questions of our time.
Couldn't agree more. Deborah put it, I thought, brilliantly, and wanted me to read this to you. If Starmer wants to demonstrate real commitment to protecting the British public, he should take decisive action. Remove Iranian extremists, close the Iranian embassy, strengthen border controls and provide full transparency on the nationalities of the 57,000 individuals currently on the terrorist watch list and deport them. That would be the first step. She's right, isn't she?
Oh, absolutely. There are so many things we could do right now, because the truth of the matter is some people will be in favour of what's happening. Some people will be against it. I understand all of that. But the truth of the matter is it's happening. There is now a war between our allies, America and Israel, and one of the worst regimes on earth. It's happening. There's nothing we can do to stop it. So Starmer now has to make a choice. He has to take a side. He has to speak up and do something. He could take all those actions that you've just outlined there. He could be firmer in his condemnation of the regime. He could say what parties are now thinking, especially Labour and the Greens, is that they can't do anything that might alienate certain Muslim voters or certain Muslim constituencies. So he could even be feeling beholden to that problem in Britain rather than speaking honestly about what we represent on the world stage.
And this is the problem. And I said it during the general election as closely, and you were with me, and clearly as I could. He made his tent, excuse the analogy, so large and I remember he got that far-right politician, that woman, Mrs. Elphick from Dover, who was on the right wing of the Tory party, to defect, and then he had some woman who was a communist. If you invite too many people to get elected, you then spend your premiership trying to please all the people all the time. And he appears rudderless. You're right. Prescribe the Islamic Revolutionary Guard as a terrorist organisation. Close the embassies. Throw out the diplomats. Think of sanctions. But no. He is hamstrung by his own party. And we all know the left would... Corbyn was there, waving his thing, going... Well, do you know what I thought was the most heartening view of the weekend? Because I have Jewish friends, and I'm massively supportive of the Jewish community, and I rail against it. It does my head in. I don't like any form of racism, but apparently the colour of your skin is racist, right? But not if you're Jewish. I hate it. What I found really wonderful at the weekend was that Iranians took to the streets of London, and there were Jewish and Israeli flags with them, and people saying, thank you for helping us achieve what we wanted to do, which is freedom. That, for me, was like a shoot of brilliance, a bud. There's a chance here. But Starmer just doesn't work, man. Doesn't work.
I was on the gathering outside Downing Street yesterday where there were Iranians celebrating, there were people waving the Israel flag, Iranians and Jews coming together essentially to celebrate what they consider to be a wonderful moment for their nations and for their peoples. And it was so good to be there. There was so much joy and jubilation. And these are people celebrating the death of a dictator, the death of one of the greatest enemies of humanity that we've seen over the past few decades. Where were the supposed progressives? They were on the other side. They were crying for this dictator. They were mourning the fact that Iran is now being attacked. It's so surreal. But, this is an opportunity for Starmer to do something that he usually doesn't do, which is to lay out what does Britain stand for.
I don't think he knows, Brendan. That's the problem. I don't think he knows.
That is the problem. He doesn't know. And that's what is being exposed. Because what a normal, decent, good Prime Minister would do at this point, they would say, war is awful. But the truth of the matter is that Iran represents something incredibly evil, the Iranian regime, rather. It's pro-terror. It is pro-oppression, it is anti-Semitic, it is anti-Western, it is anti-British, it is anti-American, and we are going to take a stand for it and a stand for the values of civilization itself. His inability to say that really reflects that he doesn't know what he stands for or what Britain stands for under his premiership. It's a disgrace.
Michael says, just to finish, the Prime Minister's speech yesterday was not addressed to the great British people. It was addressed to his voter base. Brendan, always a pleasure. You're a legend. We love you. Thank you so much indeed. Can I get a call just to fill it very quickly? 1 minute on Talk Breakfast. What you got, kiddo?
Good morning. My parents are alive during the Second World War, and my dad was in the RAF, and my mum told me Churchill's speech has kept them going. Imagine if Starmer was given the same speech. I think they'd have surrendered.
Can you imagine? It is day 43 of the war. Chocolates not allowed.
We'll fight them on the beaches.
Fight them. No, we'll fight them in the vegan cafes, and we'll sit down and have a discussion and sit cross-legged with our friends from the Green Party and all share some crack cocaine. Thank you for your call, Philip in Colchester. To Talk Breakfast.
breaking news. Israel says it has launched an attack on Iran as explosions are reported in Tehran. The Israeli defense minister has said his country has launched a preemptive attack on the regime, and the Iranian state media have reported explosions in the east and north of Tehran. The defense minister of Israel has also announced a state of emergency in Israel.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 8:24. Whatever's going on in the world, family is the most important. And Oliver William Robin Carl will not go into school. He sat in the car until I say good morning. Alan, mate, have a good day. Love you loads. Rissy Roo's there, and be nice to your mum. She's amazing. There you are. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. Back to the news. We are now reporting more breaking news. We heard from Isabel Oakeshott this morning. Those large blasts heard across the Marina area in Dubai. We played that report from Isabel. We're now hearing several more blasts in Doha and Kuwait this morning as Iran continues those retaliatory attacks across the Middle East in response to the death of the vile whatever his name was, Khamenei, I'm getting it wrong, on Saturday, of course. We are following this story, breaking news on Talk. Your opinions. Let's go to Dubai, actually. Giorgio's on the phone. Morning, Giorgio.
Hi, how are you?
Not bad, my old friend. What's going on?
So we're living on the Palm Jumeirah, and when it all kicked off, we just drove out to the desert to camp out. We were just phoning up the embassy for general advice, and a lot of people are saying you could just go over the Oman border from Al-Ain. I don't know if that's this instant, but all we had is to be put on hold for 30 minutes and saying, well, that's up to you, that's your decision, and a man just trying to be sympathetic to us.
Can I ask you?
The problem is,
go on.
A lot of people over here, all they want is a little bit of reassurance. The thing is that we've got friends that are visiting, and they're just tourists. So in our perspective, that they're not just attacking military bases. I'm across the road from the Fairmount, what got hit by a drone. But we're just looking like, what is there to do? And I've been reaching out to people saying, listen, the Al-Ain border at that time last night, of course.
Are you scared?
I was terrified with my wife last night, but now we've had to just keep calm and carry on because there is no support from the British government. There is none. We're very lucky that the UAE forces are quite capable.
Well, there you have it, ladies. Well, there you have it, because, of course, across the front of all newspapers this morning, headline in The Sun, escape from Dubai. There are 94,000 Brits. Actually, George, it's quite interesting, because the figure given to us this morning, it wasn't just the people living there. You absolutely nailed it when you said there are lots of tourists. Do you feel let down by the British Foreign Office?
They've abandoned everyone. Like, I know, listen, there's us expats that have chosen to live here, but you've got probably thousands of people just being tourists. And all they've had to do is cry in basements and hope for the best.
What's your message to Keir Starmer, Giorgio?
Well, we know there's at least 70 to 300,000 Brits over here, and you've abandoned every single one. Like, if you want to claim votes, you've probably just lost 700 to 300,000 alone there. It doesn't make any sense.
It's the reality of the situation you find yourself in. Bless you, mate. I really appreciate it. I hope you and the family stay safe. Keep us updated. We're here every single morning. We've heard there are... Have you seen any large blasts this morning? Isabel Oakeshott was on in the first hour. Have you seen or heard anything today?
I've only seen one intercepted blast, what we call northbound. So you've looked to the Burj Arab side of the Palm. But the UAE government is fantastic at what they're doing. They are good at their job. And to be honest with you, if they weren't so good at their job, I wouldn't like to rely on the British government. We're lucky. But again, I do feel like they've abandoned even the UAE government, their ally. Because they're not attacking military bases only. They're attacking, like, average Joes.
The first rule of any government, my friend, is to... Well, the first two rules of any elected government in the United Kingdom is to protect its country and its people. And I have to say, I think our leader is sadly lacking. Giorgio in Dubai, thinking that the only option might be to flee, suffering, launching retaliatory attacks from Iran. And let's make the point that he just made, OK? He feels, as do many who live in Dubai, that they've been abandoned by the British government. He, like Isabel, said the UAE government is extraordinary. Ours is not so. So you've got a Prime Minister who is letting down the people living in the Middle East, also letting down the people in this country, who sat on the fence, has hacked off our major ally America, and is a sitting duck for his own MPs to get rid of. Brilliant. What a good start to your Monday, Kira. No, it won't stop, because you won't come on. None of your ministers will come on and tell me the theory behind the madness that is this Labour government, because they would say, oh, all that station does is criticise us. No, the people are fed up, mate. Fed up to the back teeth. Let me read you this. Ellie. He won't be listening. He never does listen. I'm surprised I've got a TV left after watching Starmer last night, Jez. His auto cue was obviously running slowly. He sounded like a robot. There's no bloody emotion, no passion, no conviction. Then 10 minutes later, I get Donald Trump, love him or loathe him, being made the speech of his life. Oh, my God, the difference. I'm beginning to get to a point where I am embarrassed to be British. I mean, honestly, imagine that, right? Imagine that. What about this from Les in Swindon? JK, I think that all those who are against our British values, who even have a seat in Parliament and support these dodgy terrorist groups, should be removed from office straight away. Surely anyone who stands to become an MP should support the British values and not his own interests. Linda in Warmer, or it could be Linda Warmer. Maybe, I don't know, maybe she's wearing a jumper. This country is facing its worst ever crisis. A government of cowards who hate democracy, a disgraced ex-prince, and the rise of the Greens who pander to Muslim votes. Steve. Jezza, terror threat. What's the betting that Starmer and his blob still say that the far right are a bigger threat to the UK than the threat from Iran and everyone else? Do you know what? Absolutely. But most of all, my favourite ones are by Robert Morris, who says that I find it highly concerning that Wikipedia has this morning changed the leader of Iran's page to say he was assassinated, because in my world, what you do with a mad dog is you put it to sleep. Right, we sent our roving reporter Samara Gill out to the celebrations in London at the weekend. You see, we've talked plenty about how the deputy leader of the Greens and that madman Corbyn and his brother went out and waved flags saying, it's against international law, let's stick up for a regime that murders people and blows people up. Samara went to the people who were celebrating the fact that this is the end of one of the worst regimes in the world. Over to you, Samara.
It's the best day of my life, and for many Iranians. We don't know how we're feeling. It's just happiness, it's sadness, it's grief for thousands and thousands that have been dead by this government.
Our country is finally free. We're so happy. I don't know.
What does tomorrow look like?
The first day of freedom. Yeah.
Thank you. Congratulations. How are you feeling?
So ecstatic! We're gonna be free!
He's dead! How are you feeling?
Amazing!
Yeah?
If he's dead!
He is. They've confirmed it. How are you feeling?
Such a fantastic feeling. Unbelievable. Very happy for the Iranian people.
It's a great day for Iran and Iranians everywhere. It's a great day for freedom. And it's a very emotional night.
I love you, Trump. I love you, Trump.
For years they told us that it is impossible, that you need to do reform. We say no. This is not a reform movement. This is not a movement. This is not a protest. Islamic Republic, listen very carefully. Your dictator is dead. This is a revolution.
There you go. It's emotional here. The people are free for the first time in decades.
Bless her. She's joining us live now. Samara Gill, how are you?
Hi, I'm great, Jeremy. I'm still emotional looking back at those scenes. It was a hell of a night. It was about 20 minutes after they'd announced he was dead, so the emotions were raw.
Actually, can I just... it's a very serious topic, but Christian and I have just been smiling slightly. I thought the greatest moment ever is when, he's dead! What do you feel like? When they take me to the funeral home, when they drag me out of this studio and I pass away, are you going to come on talk and go, he's dead! How do you feel? It's brilliant, though.
I think it was difficult. I always try to just come up with one question, and that was the only thing I could do that day. I was like, yeah, he's dead. I think we all know who we're talking about here.
Can I just ask you, because it's really important that you've gone and done that, because all we've read about the weekend, you'll know this because you follow it more than me, is we've seen Corbyn, we've seen the Deputy Leader of the Greens, Mothin Ali, out at a rally talking about how Trump has broken international law and you shouldn't interfere with this man who has backed terrorism that has murdered people for years. I've been saying all morning, Samara, I've been saying I'd love to look Mothin Ali in the eyes, or Corbyn, and go, how do you answer the parents of the Manchester kids that were blown to smithereens by ISIS bombs paid for by this vile man? The thing for me is, these were Iranians on the streets happy that they have a future, right? The vibe looked great.
Yes, but you're completely right. It's utterly shameful that Keir Starmer and the Labour government have been nowhere to be seen. And you're right to mention people like Mothin Ali, because I'm genuinely starting to think, has the Greens' win on the weekend in Gorton and Denton somewhat influenced Keir Starmer's sort of trepidatious behaviour with this? I would hate to think that was the case, but I'm starting to think it might be. I mean, the fact that Britain is nowhere to be seen, both on the ground and in the sky right now, is egregious. The fact that, unfortunately, all those people out the front of the Iranian embassy were thanking Trump and only had bad things to say about Keir Starmer says a lot. I mean, this is a man who's literally hasn't shut down the Ayatollah's office in London. That's still operating.
Yep.
The ambassador's still not been expelled.
Yep.
The Islamic Revolutionary Guard has still not been prescribed as a terrorist organization by Keir Starmer. So he is actually not being in any way supportive of the Iranian people, and it's a disgrace.
He is yet again showing that I'll tell you how he manages and I'll tell you how he rules. He does it by trying to please all the people all the time. If you have Zach Polanski saying we should, and I want to say this, no, people have said to me this morning, are you saying that because they won the by-election? No, they won it. I'm not sure fair and square. Let me just point this out to everybody tuning in, by the way, at 8:35. A poll out yesterday on the back of Gorton and Denton saw Reform go up 3 points and the Greens go down 3 points. So maybe people are working out that if you grab sectarian politics and you've nothing really truthful to say, it will bite you on the arse. But this is Zach Polanski stood up at the weekend and talked about leaving NATO, cutting ties with America and getting rid of our nuclear weapons. Mothin Ali supporting a man who kills children and adults the length and breadth of the world. I would say, whether I loved Trump sometimes and hate him sometimes, I think he's done the world a favour. My only question is what comes now? Because we've seen in Afghanistan and Vietnam, the Americans are famous for going in and coming out. I hope there is a peaceful solution. That's all I'm saying.
I know. I mean, we've got the replacement Prime Minister of Iran saying that he will seek revenge on the West for what they have done. So, unfortunately, the fight is definitely not over.
No.
And it's a really good point. There's a power vacuum that is now created because of the Ayatollah being removed. But, I mean, fortunately, we can be sort of happy that the rotting fish has been cut from the head, or however you would say that, early in the morning for me. But the thing is, there are 20 foiled terror plots by the Iranian regime that were meant to happen on British soil just this year.
Admitted by the Defence Secretary yesterday, which begs the question again, if you knew that, why the hell didn't you stand shoulder to shoulder with the Americans and the Jewish people? Because that, to me, would symbolise the reason why. Here's something for you in the morning. I like the head off the rotting fish. This was set by Christian earlier and has gathered such response because I think it's genius. Here's the irony, Samara. You saw Iranians because do you think the left will ever recognise, Samara, that Israel played a major part in freeing oppressed Muslims in Iran, for God's sake, a country that wants to destroy them as a race?
I mean, this is the world's most dangerous jihadi, and he is now dead thanks to Donald Trump and Bibi Netanyahu. And we can thank them for the rest of our lives. Think of just how many lives they have saved. And you're right, it's this same conglomerate that you don't see out on the streets, which is the pro-Palestine mob.
Yeah.
When you've had 30 to 40,000 Iranians killed because they were protesting for their fight for freedom in their own country and getting slaughtered in hospitals and the back of streets because of what they were doing. This is a massive win for the West's fight against Islamic terrorism and Islamic extremism. And you can see that the Islamists hate their own, hence why they're bombing Bahrain, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, etc. No one likes Iran. They are the crazed uncle of the Middle East. And the fact that these absolutely incoherent lefties don't understand that is pretty unforgivable. I think we'll look back in history as, you know, those are the types that went and graffitied the Churchill statue when Churchill is the person who defeated the Nazis. I mean, we have a real cancer in the West, and that is extreme Islamism and these left-wingers who don't want to confront reality.
I feel like the proud father with your speech there. That was brilliant. Sorry, that was a bit... I mean that. That was brilliant. And great work, by the way, mate. But listen, personally, I felt you could have come in this morning, but you just take it easy and enjoy your life. I'll get up at 2 a.m, all right?
Anyway, we'll talk about it later.
Absolutely. The brilliant Samara Gill, thank you very much indeed. 0344 499 1000. We talk. Good morning, Sean.
Morning, Jeremy. Sean in Leicester. Yet again, I'm sat in the car. My blood is boiling. If Starmer is scared of upsetting Muslim communities or any community by taking a stand against terrorism, then we've got the wrong communities in our country. If anybody agrees with what the Iranians have done or any other terrorist organisation or country is doing around the world, specifically to the UK with those 20 foiled attempts, then they should not be a community in our country. Great show, mate.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. It's 20 minutes to 9 o'clock. We're live across the UK. Talk Breakfast is on, the home of common sense and the home of alarm clock. Brett, you can be involved this morning. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. Listen, I'm just going to give you a little bit of info. An extraordinary video we've just discovered that Robert Jenrick, who defected, of course, from the Tories to Reform. I'm going to give you 2 words. Going to play it for you exclusively in a few minutes. Rachel Reeves. Scandal. Extraordinary. Well done, Robert Jenrick. We'll play that to you very soon. 0344 499 1000. Of course, you're waking up to the only news story in town. Last night, Iran attacked the British military base. You tried to say British. I sounded like Jonathan Ross. British military base in RAF Akrotiri in Cyprus. Does this, in people's minds, means that Article 5 of NATO should be implemented? You attack one, you attack all. That's not going to happen under this government. This government has sat on the fence. This government didn't want to use military bases, although they sent out the Defence Secretary yesterday to say there are 20 terror plots that have been foiled where it's proven that Iran wanted to blow Britons up and destroy your country, but we're not going to stand against them because, you know, international law says you shouldn't do that. And then in the afternoon, Starmer said, well, I'll tell you what you can do. You can use my bases. The man doesn't know which way to turn. You've got the Greens who'd like to leave NATO, cut all ties with the Americans, give back our nuclear weapons and go on a march saying Khomeini's a nice guy. Jeremy, may I ask a question to Jacqueline in Liverpool?
At all by what they're doing. I'm afraid there's been a fundamental misjudgment in the analysis of what would happen in relation to the attacks by Israel and the United States against Iran. And somebody should have gamed it, to tell you the truth, to see what our political objectives were in this conflict and where our interests lay. It seems that all we want to be is the timid bystander in all of this, and in the hope that if we don't actually say anything, nobody will come near us.
But the problem is if you do that and you don't make a decision and you're not proactive, you quite rightly face the accusation that you're trying to please all the people all the time, which I think is a mirror a mirror image of everything about this government, that they don't do anything from their heart. They didn't have a plan. They don't, you know, think, I'm going to do this even if I get criticism because this is what I believe in. They wait and wait and wait and wait. And the fact of the matter is, internationally we look weak. The Iranians have bombed a British military base. Nothing's happened. We haven't thrown out diplomats. We haven't prescribed the IRG, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, as a terrorist organisation. It's just the same usual docile BS, isn't it? I don't mean to swear, but it just drives me insane. I wouldn't care, Chris, if he came out and said, I'm never going to support the Americans. But he doesn't. He sits on the fence, and it's so frustrating.
I genuinely think that this government does not have the intellectual or strategic literacy to be able to cope in a complex world at the moment. We're not respected on the world stage because, as you say, nobody knows what we stand for. But I think at heart, whatever they're dealing with, whether it's the small boats in the Channel, whether it's international affairs, there's no strategy. Everything's tactical. And the way I describe it, I used to describe it when I was teaching military theory, is if you spend all your time in the trench, you think what you're facing is opposite you. And if you went on the balcony, you'd see you're in the wrong trench. And I'm afraid to say what this government doesn't do at all, I repeat, is strategy. All it does is live from one day to the next, hoping it's going to survive. That is not a strategy for a great country. It's not a strategy for a country that wants to be respected in the world.
Strange enough, I was thinking about you yesterday. Please don't take this the wrong way, because I thought we need to get him on because he'll explain this to me. We are looking at crude oil has gone up by 10% already. That's going to impact on the British motorist. Apparently, I think the fuel duty was going to be raised tomorrow by the Chancellor. It'll probably U-turn number 4036. Tell me about the Straits of Hormuz, because I've been reading about the fact that 150 boats are stockpiled and can't go through one of the biggest shipping routes in the land. There's global turmoil, which is going to impact because Iran controls that. You were a naval man. Explain the reality of that situation, if you could, Chris.
Yeah, so you've got a very narrow strait, as you can see. You've got part of Oman sticking up on that peninsula. You've got Iran to the north, and all the oil that comes from Saudi Arabia, from Iran, Kuwait, all these other places, Bahrain, comes through the strait. There's quite a proportion goes from Iran by pipeline to China. And what makes it critical is some of the major economies like China and Japan rely on that oil, and to an extent gas as well, coming through the straits. And any constraint of the straits there means that you get a constraint in the oil. What's really interesting at the moment is that President Trump has targeted Iran's navy. They say they've already sunk 9 vessels. The Iranians have got a load of missiles and also submersible and semi-submersible missile platforms, which will need to be taken out. I suspect one of the things that the Americans will concentrate on is ensuring that the straits can be reopened and that China in particular can be reassured whatever happens in Iran, whatever regime takes over, that flow of oil will continue. Because one thing that will get China involved in this dispute, if they see basically one of the motors of their economy, their oil supply from the Gulf, being disrupted. So any country that can say to China, just stay on the sidelines, we'll keep the oil flowing, is going to do well in this.
Just from a military, brilliant, mate, seriously, just from a military point of view, Donald Trump said earlier 4 weeks. How quick can this be done in your mind? You're the expert.
So it depends what's going on in the country. I think the American strategy is to decapitate the leadership, to destroy the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, to try and get the armed forces to basically revolt against the regime and indeed the IRGC. We mustn't forget that the IRGC is the equivalent of the SS in Nazi Germany. If you like, what we need is for the Wehrmacht to turn on the SS. And once that happens, you're going to see an implosion of power in Iran. My worry, Jeremy, is if you look at the 1979 revolution, it was very bloody indeed. There was a lot of score settling. There was a lot of sort of people getting killed. And the last thing that we need is for Iran to descend into anarchy. And I'm not sure who the alternative ruling people are, to tell you the truth. I can't see anybody.
I saw at the weekend the old Shah of Iran's son, the prince, is abroad. I think somebody said me, I don't know where he is, but anyway, they believe that could be the answer. But you're right, and I said at the beginning, didn't I? It's what happens afterwards. The Americans, I'm not having a go at them. Well, I am to a degree. Afghanistan, that was ridiculous. Vietnam took ages. If you're going to make the change for the good of the world, without being accused of being dictatorial, you have to be around to make sure there's an answer. Chris, it's an absolute pleasure, mate. We'll be using you a lot. I hope you don't mind that. No sleep for you in the next few days. Good man. Dr. Chris Parry, former Royal Navy Commander. Quick call. Georgina in London. 1 minute. Go.
Right, well, we're sick and tired of this Prime Minister bowing down to the radical Muslim population in the hopes that he will win the next election, Jeremy. He won't win any election ever again in this country, and that's a flat fact. The fact he's done yet another U-turn and finally given his permission for our allies to use our military bases, well, that's no surprise to me. Instead of sitting on his hands and leaving our allies, helping our allies to do the right thing, Keir Starmer should have been standing side by side with them, fighting for what was right from the offset, which is the annihilation of the terrorist regime in Iran, a regime which has kept the Iranian people oppressed and tortured, a regime that has always been a direct threat to Western civilization. Starmer must now get off the fence and take a strong stance against Islamic tyranny. It's as simple as that. We can't continue with this all things to all men, love thy neighbour, even if they want to annihilate you attitude. He needs to find some testicular fortitude and do what's right for once. He has gone against everything that Britain stands for, and I am wholeheartedly embarrassed by his leadership, his actions, and his misplaced priorities and loyalties. He and his party are without doubt the biggest danger and liability to our country, Jeremy. And whilst these people are in power, our country, our population and our economy will never be secure. All I can say is God bless the USA and Israel for taking the reins and doing what should have been done 47 years ago.
Georgina, we love you. We love you. We love you. Thank you very much indeed, Georgina in London. Totally passionate. We've got 2 minutes. Push the sports button, my old son.
90 minutes in 90 seconds.
Very good morning. A very good morning to Charlie Wyatt from The Sun. Charlie, sorry, it's a manic morning. We've just got a couple of minutes. I'm going to stick my neck on the line. I know West Ham lost to Liverpool. I watched Spurs be beaten by Arsenal. You're going to disagree to me. I honestly believe they're on the way down. The body language, appalling.
A lot of Tottenham fans would agree with you, obviously. They seem to be having a good go at relegation. I think it would be the biggest shock relegation since Manchester United went down in the 70s. It is possible. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think West Ham will go down. I still think it's going to be Nottingham Forest. They've had such a mad season, 4 managers. I still think... sort of Forest sort of out-mazzing Spurs, basically.
Do Arsenal win the Premier League? Hip, hip, hurrah. He was good, the goalkeeper. Yes, it's all in the sun. Do they win it, do you think?
I still think... I'm still not convinced. They've still got a brilliant chance. It's all going to go down to Manchester City v Arsenal at the Etihad on April the 18th. I think that's going to be the title shootout.
Yeah, I forget. Who do you support again?
Norwich.
Oh, we're doing better under Philippe Clement. Man United, how good do Man United look under Carrick, up to third?
Brilliant. It's great news for United, great news for people that want a British coach, great news for British coaches, because they'll be delighted that Carrick's doing a great job with Jonathan Woodgate and Steve Holland. I think United are going to finish third, yeah.
Good man. Listen, Charlie, well done to Norwich, by the way. As I say, Philippe Clement doing a good job. I know it's only quick, but we're very grateful. And all you need in Sunsport. Charlie there, of course, editor of Sunsport. Absolutely fantastic job. Thank you very much indeed. It's almost 9 o'clock. We're live across the United Kingdom. Talk Breakfast is on. 0344 499 1000 for your voice notes, your text on 87222. Start your message with the word talk. Morning, Marky.
Morning, Jezza. Great show as usual. Mark from Wilmslow. Isn't Keir Starmer just a sympathiser for Islam? Everyone's calling him weak. He's not weak. He's doing this on purpose. So let's see why we don't call this out for what it is. He knows exactly what he's doing. He doesn't want to upset the Muslim vote, so he's going to do everything he can to a minimum to not upset them. Hence why he keeps saying about international law. I think we just need to call his party, and just call it out for what it is. He puts Islam in front of Britain, the same as the Democrats put immigrants in front of their own people in the United States, which Trump brilliantly called out the other day. Have a great show, mate. See you later.
Breaking news. Israel says it has launched an attack on Iran as explosions are reported in Tehran. The Israeli defense minister has said his country has launched a preemptive attack on the regime, and the Iranian state media have reported explosions in the east and north of Tehran. The defense minister of Israel has also announced a state of emergency in Israel.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
fancy returning to the front line as Foreign Secretary?
I am going to return. I am going to return. To the people from whence I came. Hello, I'm Peter Mandelson, and I'm proud to serve as His Majesty's British Ambassador to the United States of America. I feel a tremendous sense, a profound sense of sympathy for those people, those women who suffered as a result of his behaviour and his illegal criminal activities. And secondly, I regret very, very deeply indeed carrying on that association with him for far longer than I should have done.
The Ambassador has repeatedly expressed his deep regret for his association with him. He's right to do so. I have confidence in him, and he's playing an important role in the UK-US relationship.
Mandy's out 4 decades and 3 scandals, or 3 that we know about. Guess what? Number 10 knew all about it. They knew that he lived in Jeffrey Epstein's flat.
Mandelson resigned from the Labour Party late last night over the allegations of $75,000 set of payments to him from Epstein while he was business secretary, $10,000 to his now husband, a photo of him in his pants. This isn't just bad form. There are strong arguments here for him to be facing investigation over misconduct in public office.
I knew of his association with Epstein, but had I known then what I know now, I'd have never appointed him.
Breaking news that Lord Mandelson, Peter Mandelson, has now been arrested. So Mandy and Andy have now both had their collars felt. This is the establishment, the British establishment on trial. Came to us around about 5 o'clock when we learned that we saw footage of Peter Mandelson being led out of his London home in very exclusive Regent's Park by 3 coppers.
Now we have all these allegations, we have all the documentation related to those allegations, which Downing Street is being forced to put out. The first tranche of it will be early next month.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Right, welcome back. Just gone 9 o'clock. We're live across the United Kingdom. Talk, of course, the home of common sense and of alarm clock Brits. This hour we'll speak to the former head of the British Army even, Lord Dannatt, the former Defence Secretary Grant Shapps as well on this show. We're delighted as well to welcome ahead of 10 o'clock Fleur Hossein Namoum, the Israeli Foreign Ministry Special Envoy, formerly the Mayor of Jerusalem. And I will give you an exclusive play of a video that dropped from Robert Jenrick earlier. I'm going to give you 3 words. Rachel Reeves, scandal. Don't go anywhere. It's on this station. 0344 499 1000. You know the main news. That attack on... And probably wouldn't have been included in this operation. If you were heading the British Army now, how would you be feeling if we'd been left on the sidelines thus?
Well, we have always traditionally supported the Americans. The Americans need allies when they act on the international stage. And... all right, we can all recognise that the campaigns in Iraq and Afghanistan did not turn out the way that we wanted. But you have to learn lessons from these situations. And it comes down to the basic question, have the Americans done the right thing or have the Americans done the wrong thing? If you think they've done the right thing, then there's a very strong case to say that we should, as we have in the past, stood shoulder to shoulder with them and supported them. And I think it comes down to the narrow issue of the air bases in this country and the air base on Diego Garcia. They exist because we have given the Americans the permission to use those bases. Well, when they decide they need them for an operation which they deem is important, it seems counterintuitive to then say, well, you can't use the bases at Milton Hall and Lakenheath and Fairford and Diego Garcia. Yes, all right, your stuff's there, but we're not going to let you use them. That is wrong. And I think at long last, Keir Starmer has realised that and is taking steps towards changing his position, which makes us look quite weak, I have to say.
Are you concerned from a military point of view about... I mean, we've heard about blasts across the Middle East already today, Richard, but what about retaliatory attacks on UK soil? People will be concerned about that. They have every right to be, I guess.
Well, it's always possible. I mean, we've seen the Russians taking people out in this country. We've heard from John Healey that 20 attacks were thwarted by our intelligence services. So the country must remain on high alert. Probably there's a good case to raise the official attack threat level. And again, you're showing on the screen now the front gate of RAF Akrotiri. A base like that is always going to be susceptible to attack. Now, as far as that's concerned, I hope we've put in place sufficient air defence mechanisms to protect that base and protect the people that live and work there. And exactly the same way, our counterintelligence staff in this country need to be on high alert to track known sympathisers of the Iranian regime, people who are potentially likely to carry out attacks in this country, track them and make sure that we all stay as safe as possible. No one can be completely confident that there won't be attacks, but we have to work jolly hard, be alert, and make sure our counterintelligence and air defence systems are strong enough to protect our people.
Final question. This is from Pete, actually, in Liverpool. It's a really interesting one. As the ex-head of the army, Lord Dannett, do you believe our army is big enough or equipped enough to deal with any war against Iran or any other country in the future?
No, is the short answer. We have been underfunding defence ever since the end of the Cold War, taking too many successive peace dividends, and the part of our armed forces that's least been invested in is the army at the present moment. The army hasn't got the modern equipment it needs in sufficient numbers. We haven't got the ammunition, the missiles that we should have, and we haven't got a sufficient number of soldiers. We need to, or the government needs to start putting money on the table and not just talking about increasing the defence budget. Get on and do it and grow the capability that we need. We need it particularly, and I know the focus is on the Middle East region at the present moment, but what really affects us is Russia and what Russia does after Ukraine. That's why we need to increase our defence capability to keep ourselves safe here and in Europe.
I mean, I've said it many times to the point where people shout at me, Lord Dannett, but I think, and this is not, by the way, at Keir Starmer's door, this goes all the way back to Theresa May, I think, and Cameron. I think the belief that, you know, everything's fine in the world, it's just cut. So apparently somebody told me the other day we have less people in our military forces than we do illegal migrants who have arrived in this country. I think that's an absolute disgrace for an island. And maybe what's gone on, if anything comes out of this sort of stuff, it will be that we realise that we do have to update massively our military forces, Army, Air Force and Navy, because of the threat the world can pose.
Jeremy, you're absolutely right. But you know, we've been saying this for many years, and successive governments have not been listening. Keir Starmer at the Munich Security Conference last month in January talked about increasing to 3% of GDP by 2029 and to 3.5% by 2034. But have they begun to put any more money on the table? No. Has the Ministry of Defence been able to let contracts to British defence industry? No. Why not? Because the money is not being made available. The Chancellor's spring statement is tomorrow. I don't expect for a moment that we're going to hear that more money is going to be made available to defence. But we have got to go on making the case, and the government's got to get real. We've got to change. They've got to change their priorities and promote up the level of priorities the security of this country, our real estate, our borders, and our people, both at home and overseas. We've got to get real and got to get real soon.
Couldn't agree more. Listen, it's always an absolute pleasure to have you. Lord Richard Dannett, thank you very much indeed for joining us, former head of the British Army. And in fact, the question that he put is that successive governments haven't found the money to defend or to build a defence system capable of protecting this country. I'll put to my next guest after the break, Grant Shapps, former Tory Defence Minister, Secretary of State, on this show. Quick call here. We'll go to London. Nick, good morning. You're on Talk Breakfast.
Good morning. How are you?
Not bad, my friend. Your wife is stuck in Dubai, I believe.
Yes, that's correct. She's stuck in Dubai. She was due to leave this evening, but of course they've extended the restrictions until apparently tomorrow. So, yes, we're just waiting for updates at the moment.
How is she? Has you spoken to her? Is she scared? Is she all right? What's going on?
Yeah, no, she's like everybody else that's stuck over there at the moment. She's pretty terrified, pretty stressed.
And it's difficult because they don't know. I mean, we had Isabel Oakeshott on earlier on saying several large blasts being heard in Dubai. You can't know what the hell's going on. Actually, it's not just, of course, we made this point earlier, it's not just the people who live there. There are thousands of tourists as well. The government, though, say they're going to help get these people out, although the people on the ground are telling us that the government are useless. What are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, my wife isn't a British national, so unfortunately I spoke to the, although she obviously lives in the UK, she's a British taxpayer and all the above, they were just flatly this morning just not interested at the moment. Obviously appreciate they've got their hands full. But as far as the local government's concerned, I mean, there is no question. They've been absolutely fantastic.
Everybody said the UAE government's been so much better than the British government, who, again, have shown themselves up to be rubbish.
Well, I hate to say it, but the UAE government over there, they have been absolutely above and beyond. You know, they're at the moment they're covering everybody's costs. They're doing everything they can to assist everybody, and of course it's probably got one of the best air defense systems in the world. So there's a lot of, unfortunately, there's a lot of a lot of AI. Social media stuff going out at the moment, which is making everybody back here who has loved ones over there think it's the end of the world. Of course, it's very frightening, but from the ground over there, they're unquestionably being fantastic, far better than the British government is. Far more helpful.
Couldn't disagree with you more. I hope your wife gets back safely, my friend. Thank you so much indeed. That was Nick from London, 9:21. We're live across the UK. Is Julia here at 10, or is it somebody else? It's Alex Phillips from 10 o'clock. Oh, batten down the hatches. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. Still to come between now and 10 o'clock. That video from Robert Jenrick that has just dropped. All I'm going to say is 3 words. Rachel Reeves scandal. We'll say a very good morning to the former Defence Secretary. Grant Shapps, welcome to Talk Breakfast. How are you?
Morning, yeah, not bad, thanks.
You look how I feel, my friend, but thank you and welcome to the show. I'd love your take on all of this, Grant. All of this. We started reporting, obviously, early on about a military base, British one, in RAF Akrotiri in Cyprus. As a former defence secretary, let me put this to you, and before we talk about this pathetic government, does not a strike on a British military base mean that Article 5 of NATO should be implemented? An attack on one is an attack on all, my friend?
I do think that all of NATO should be engaged in this conflict, and more than anything else, I think our own government has been incredibly naive, thinking, as it seemed to when this got going, that somehow we could avoid it, that we could somehow be absent from the biggest story in the world right now, when we have British bases. There are 2 on Cyprus. We have shipping in the Red Sea constantly under attack for years now by the Houthis, sponsored by the Iranians. We have our bases in Syria and Iraq, where the Iranian militia, sponsored militias, are attacking our people. And yet somehow, this Prime Minister and this government decide that this is nothing to do with us. And of course, no surprise, they've had to U-turn.
International law ties him in knots. He can't make a decision. Did you see Healy yesterday on the BBC?
I mean, it was painful. I think Johnny is a good man, trapped in the body of a government that, really must be beyond despair internally for him. I mean, talk about being twisted in knots. Obviously, our British interests lay at the heart of this and should be protected. Obviously, the right of self-defense means that we had every right to be engaged in this from the outset, and not some sort of impotent bystanders just standing on the edge of this and showing ourselves to be powerless by failing to use the capacity and the ability that we have. I mean, I just, for a British Defence Secretary to be put in that position and put on the Sunday morning shows, to sit there and say nothing because the human rights lawyer of a Prime Minister cannot make a decision until basically it's too late.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I thought, and you've served in government, I thought the primary and first role of a government is sort of dual, which is to protect the country and protect its people. And I it is beyond me. And I've been laying into this bloke for 18 months. It's astonishing to me when your defence secretary goes on telly and says 20 terror attacks, and yet you won't stand shoulder to shoulder. But let's have it. We're in a position, Grant, of the Greens. They won a by-election the other week with Zach Polanski, who you'll forgive me for calling hypno-tits, but I'm not apologising to anybody for that name because it sums him up. This man goes on the BBC and says we should leave NATO, we should give up our nuclear weapons, we should cut all ties with America. And as if that isn't bad enough, his deputy leader, Mothin Ali, joins a rally in central London supporting the regime. And this is a populist party that is on the march in the United Kingdom. What does that tell you?
Yeah, it's just extraordinary. And since when did, well, for a long time, I guess, is the answer. But, you know, it's one thing being, you know, an environmentalist, right? But I don't see why that means that you also simultaneously have to hate our way of life, hate the West, believe that a regime like Iran, who persecute women, who have religious police tell you how long your beard should be, and who have murdered tens of thousands of their own citizens on their streets in just the last few weeks alone, that being a Green means you should then go out and support that.
I would only pick you up on one thing there. I haven't heard throughout Gorton and Denton or anything, I haven't heard one mention about hugging a tree. That's the irony of the dreadful Greens. They're actually a sort of communist version of the Labour Party dressed up as Greens. They don't mention rivers or trees anymore. It's all about everything else. I have to ask you this, and you're experienced enough to know why, and you'll answer the question. Do you not think that do you think the Supreme Leader should have been taken out years ago? And if so, as the Defence Secretary in a Conservative government of 14 years, why didn't that happen?
Yeah, I absolutely do. And I'll tell you this, I could not understand why our policy towards Iran was so accommodating and so, I mean, you know, always trying to seek some sort of negotiated settlement when you can't negotiate with these people. Unfortunately, you know, they're deaf to America, deaf to Israel, deaf to the West. They have no interests that we share with them. And so for your information, whilst I was Defence Secretary, it was only for a year, I was working to move our policy. And when Iran attacked Israel April 2024, I was Defence Secretary, and I ordered the RAF up in the skies over Syria, over Iraq, to take down those incoming east to west projectiles, the missiles and the drones, and they did it. This government wouldn't even put our jets in the air to help defend when Israel was attacked again by Iran.
I want to bring up something. Sorry, go on. Yeah. Sorry, you go.
Go ahead.
I was going to bring up something about...
that was it.
So, yeah, I was just going to bring something about Israel, forgive me, but it really interests me, and I want you, you're a politician with huge experience, right? Do you not think it's slightly ironic? We were playing a clip earlier, we sent our reporter down, and there were Iranians on the streets of London over the weekend celebrating. There was a small minority waving the flags like Corbyn, going, you know, let's support a killer. But a lot of people were out there celebrating the death of the evil dictator. And I wanted your opinion on this, actually. Do you think that any on the left, Grant Shapps, will be able to recognise and celebrate the fact, ironically, that it was Israel who played a major part in freeing oppressed Muslims in Iran, for God's sake?
Yeah. I mean, it is extraordinary. You see Corbyn. I mean, it's also predictable, I know. And others sort of say, well, leave the poor Iranians alone and we support them. I mean, just point. The people of the West who enjoy all the freedoms of literally being able to come on a show like yours and say what the hell we like, which are democratic freedoms that we should all cherish, think that regimes that persecute their populations and try to murder people who disagree with them, well, not try, do murder people who disagree with them, are the goodies. I mean, it is just absolutely gobsmacking. And just the lack of moral clarity. As you say, Iran absolutely should have been dealt with years ago. Look, I'm the first to criticize Trump. I don't like lots of what he does, including the fact he's unable to distinguish between a dictator in Moscow and a democratically elected, European country with a president who's democratically elected in Ukraine. So I'm the first to criticize Trump. But on this, he is absolutely right. The world has had enough of Iran, and the idea that you can negotiate with them, come some sort of settled agreement, the sort of thing this government's calling for now, which is just extraordinary given what's happened, is a complete myth. And it's right to take action sometimes. Sometimes you have to use raw power. I'm very saddened to see the UK left looking impotent whilst the world is changing around us.
You said that you believe that the Tory government got it wrong. How is it? I'm just being honest. Tell me to get lost. How is it out of it? Do you miss it? Or are you glad you're out of the madness that is being a politician?
It's a lot more freedom and, not quite the constant pressure as well. So, no, I'm having a lovely time and just sort of decompressing after all those years, and I think more cabinet roles than anyone else alive. So, I was right in the thick of it. Do I miss it? Yeah, of course you do. I mean, actually, particularly when you see a government, making so many obvious mistakes, including in the last couple of days where headed off in the wrong direction. We're not going to be involved. Last night, have to turn. You do just look at it all and go, oh, you just can't believe the mess that they're making of it. And of course, that does make you have that sort of that tinge of missing it.
Are you coming back?
Time will tell. I don't know. As I say, I'm having a lot of fun doing some great things outside of politics, and seeing my family and things that I haven't been able to do for a lot of years. But you never know. As I say, I do just certainly miss it.
Now, I don't want you to take this the wrong way, because it's not meant that way. A couple of your colleagues, well, several of them, have defected to Reform. You can tell me your views on that, but I want to play you a video that Robert Jenrick dropped at 8:30 this morning. Nobody has seen this, except if you follow him online. This is extraordinary, and I think sums this government. This is all about Rachel Reeves. Please enjoy, Grant, and everybody else. Here we go.
In Leeds, where Rachel Reeves is the MP, 1 in 4 aren't working. Now, you'd think the person in charge of the economy would be focused on fixing that. Instead, she's been hanging out with the man she describes as her friend, Arshad Katana.
Pleasure to be here with you this evening.
A man who shared a military video, which also glorified terrorists from 2 terror groups, who said that those who speak against Islam are an evil gang who he will help to destroy, who's hosted preachers at his Leeds mosque with vile views. One said we shouldn't use Google because it's run by the Jews. Another is infamous for supporting a despicable Islamist murderer. Arshad has shared conspiracy theories about 9/11 and an international lending mafia backed by Zionist Rothschild criminals. He's called for revenge against India and for everyone to get together and finish these evils on earth. And he said he would only support Reeves and Labour if they do what I demand. Why is Reeves friends with this man? Why is she hanging out with him time and again since 2010? Why is she asking his views on foreign policy? And why is she going around to Ashad's house as Chancellor for lunch? Shouldn't she be focused on getting your bills down and bringing back good jobs?
Grant Shapps, what do you make of that?
Well, Robert's always very good with the old social media videos, and he's also right about the point, which is, this government's priorities are all in the wrong place. Every Labour, I mean, the point he starts off on, but doesn't much come back to there, is that every single Labour government in history has left this country with more people on the dole than when they came to power. And this one is doing exactly this. It's a repeat of history. They're doing the same thing again. So he's absolutely right about the economic stuff. Also I've no doubt at all, Rachel Reeves and the whole of this Labour party's heart is in the wrong place when it comes to, whose side are they on. Where I disagree with Jenrick, and I find it quite hard to sort of take him seriously when I see these things, is a year ago he's telling us just over a year ago, he wanted to be Tory leader. He obviously didn't want it that much, because when he didn't get it, he got up and left the party. I'm afraid my view is somewhat tinged by that. I get the subject matter. Yep.
I get that view, but just one final question, and not on any side about this. I'm going to just tell you my personal side. During the last election, we have to think all purdah, so we have to be very balanced. I was interviewing a Tory MP and a would-be Reform candidate, and Reform candidate started to speak and was talking about, secure borders, more military spending, more police on the streets, less ideology in schools, reading, writing and arithmetic, not a girl can have a penis and all that rubbish, and was talking about things that I had always backed, fiscal responsibility as a Tory voter for 58 years. And the Tory MP jumped in, Grant, and said, well, that's far-right politics. I think the reason that Reform has... I mean, I'd love your opinion. I think the reason Reform has grown as it has, and maybe Jenrick, take him out of this for a minute, is that many disaffected Tories feel, and you touched upon it at the beginning with perhaps the Supreme Leader defence spending, moved away from doing what traditional Tories expected their government and party to do. That is, I think, the problem the Tory party has. Would you agree with that?
I think that's exactly it. I mean, it's not the only problem, right? Because we actually also govern through incredibly difficult times, a war in Europe pushing up the energy prices, COVID, something like no government had seen for over 100 years. So there were other factors. And it's always very easy when you're not in power to go, oh, you should just do this. It will all be fine. Just go and do this. But you don't really understand the many shades of difficulty and, what else would be the unexpected consequence of doing it. So you can make things sound very easy when you're in opposition. But to your fundamental point, you are right. We stopped doing the things that you expect a Conservative government to do. Smaller government, less interference in your lives, cutting taxes to unleash the entrepreneurship that this country undoubtedly has, but yet somehow we add up to less than the sum of our parts in the country and in the world. But where I disagree with the Reform line, and I'll just put this on record, is they have a very miserable view of the future. And I feel slightly depressed whenever they come on and tell us how, we're going, down the, to hell in a handcart. And I think there is definitely space for a much more optimistic Conservative party that is the party of the economy. And I do notice that actually Conservatives have the lead on the economy, of sound economics, but actually also of a positive, future for this country where we do add up to more than the sum of our parts and get out there in the world and really show the world what we're made of, which is, an incredible island that, let's face it, in the past has actually pretty much run the world. Well, that is because we've got great enterprise and squashbuckling attitude towards the world. And we should get out there and economically at least, run the world.
Two final questions, very quick. You had so many cabinet jobs, I couldn't possibly check out. Were you Chancellor ever?
I was not Chancellor, no.
Oh, honestly, what a fail you were.
I know.
Could you give Rachel Reeves, or Rachel from Accounts, or Richard III, as I call her, because of her hairstyle, can you give her one piece of advice for tomorrow?
Well, first of all, if you carry on taxing people's jobs, right, and tell the people who create the wealth in this country that they should leave, then don't be surprised if the economy doesn't grow and the debt keeps rising. It's as simple as that. This government literally tells people, if you are successful, if you create wealth, if you create jobs, we don't want you in Britain. And people are leaving, and it's damaging everybody.
I have to say, despite the fact that you're enjoying your life with your family, I've got a request, because I've loved having you on. Will you come back on, because you're brilliant? Is that OK?
That's very kind of you. Of course, anytime.
Excellent. Grant Shapps, former Defence Secretary. Well, by his own words, he had about 5 cabinet jobs. Fascinating interview there, talking about reform, talking about the present government, talking about defence, having been Defence Secretary, talking about Rachel Reeves. That'll be fun tomorrow, the spring statement. Thank God it won't be before 10 o'clock. Morning, Alan.
Morning, GK. Big Al from Swansea, yeah. Well done to Trump and all the allies. Starmer hiding behind the city as per usual, looking in his books for rule of law in international war to do. If someone with a backbone like Mrs. Thatcher was, what do you think she would do? Let's go and sort these people out. What it is, it's a classic good against evil. These evil is about 10% evil people in the world trying to take over the world and get back 3,000 years. What Trump and the allies, except Starmer, we're pushing against evil. It's like having a bad tooth. You know it's got to come out, so let's get it done, get it over and done with. There's a lot of work to do now in the future, but the pushback has started. The ordinary man and woman just wants a normal life, get on with each other. but you got these scumbags in the world want to bring us down. Well done, Trump. Keep going and get reforming. A couple of years, this country will be back where we should be on the world stage. As it is now, with embarrassment. Keep up the great show, buddy. Ta-ra.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 19 minutes to 10. It is Alex Phillips in for Julia Hartley-Brewer. She's away this week. Alex from 10 every single morning. Ian from 1. And Kev O'Sullivan, it says here... No, he is sounding great on drive time from 4 o'clock this afternoon. We're delighted. I want to get an Israeli viewpoint very quickly on the show before the end of today. We say a very good morning to the Israeli former ministry special envoy and former mayor of Jerusalem, Fleur Hussein Nahum. A very good morning to you, Fleur. How are you?
Good morning. Good morning. Hanging on there.
Yeah, I just wanted to say something because listen, I've been very vocal about Israel and my support because it does my head in. Here's an irony for you. As the Iranians across the world celebrate the death of that vile, disgusting human being, one wonders how many on the liberal left, Fleur, in the world, will actually recognise that it was Israel, right, and the United States, but Israel, who literally helped free oppressed Muslims from Iran. Be nice to be thanked, wouldn't it?
No, thank you is not something we expect from these people who have got their moral compass completely wrong. We're talking about a man who killed more Muslims since 1979 than anybody else. We're talking about a man who tortured, beat women, who was actually... People don't talk enough about this. A paedophile himself who actually gave out all sorts of opinions that you could marry and rape little girls. This was really the scum of the earth. This is the person who's caused so much suffering to his own people, who gave the order to kill his own people, almost 50,000 people dead. And when the Iranian army themselves couldn't face shooting their own people, he brought mercenaries in from Iraq and Syria and other places to kill his own people. And these are the people that the New York Times, I don't know whether you saw this, gave him a glowing obituary. And the Washington Post talking about his smile. He's such an accessible person to talk to. You can't make this up. You can't make this up.
Israel seemingly is in the sights of almost everybody. We've heard about retaliatory blasts this morning across Doha and Qatar, Kuwait and Dubai. We had a Isabella Oak shot out there. The Israeli population seemingly at this moment can't get anything right. Why wasn't this man taken out years ago, sir?
Well, that's a great question, because nobody had the guts to do it. After prime ministers and presidents, everybody, it was almost like the abused wife syndrome. It's like you get used to your abuser, you keep putting up with it. They kill people, they've killed British people, they've killed 1,000 Americans. They haven't stopped funding and killing us, Israelis. They've funded Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis. The Houthis have been a menace to everyone for the last 2 years.
Yep.
They are the major exporter of terrorism in the world. And let me just tell you, people think it doesn't touch Britain. All sorts of different non-profit organizations now connected to the Islamic regime are coming up every day. They are part of that big push in Europe for the Islamization of Europe. And this is the man that nobody wanted to take out. And thank God that in all these Chamberlains we have in the world, a couple of Churchills came up, and they were Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Trump. Because if we're going to rely on Starmer, I honestly think that Winston Churchill will be turning in his grave to see what's become of the British leadership.
Mate, try being here. I'm with you 100%. We had a defence secretary yesterday who went on television, sort of, extraordinary, freely admits on the one hand that Iran has plotted almost 20 terror attacks in Great Britain, right? Yeah. But we have a government that won't go side by side because international law, what a pile of old rubbish. And we've got a party, a populist party that seems to be growing at the moment called the Greens. They don't hug trees anymore. Their leader spent the weekend saying that we should leave NATO, cut ties with Israel and America and give back all our nuclear weapons. And just to completely make you feel better, his deputy, Mohsin Ali, joined a rally in support of the Islamic regime. And I always say, and I'd love your take on this, right? I'd love those people to go and talk to the parents of those kids that were blown up at the Manchester Arena where they were bombed to death and look them in the eyes and go, oh, no, we should sit down with Khomeini. What a load of old crap.
They wouldn't dare. If any of these people, I mean, if what's his name, Polanski, who I call Goofy, ever actually made it to mainstream politics, it would be a danger to the country, a strategic threat to the country. These people are living in La La Land. They're living in this activism world, which is not the real world, as Zoran Mandani is beginning to find out. And unfortunately, they are a danger to their own country. But, you know, throughout history, you've always had people like this. The point is that, unfortunately, you don't have enough leaders today that are brave enough to do the best, which is strategic and not electoral. And this is a problem. Everybody's chasing, instead of being a leader, they're taking a poll, seeing where people are, and then saying, oh, that's what we're going to do. To be a leader is sometimes to go against the grain for the good of your country and for the good of your people. And that is what President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu have done. They're doing things that are unpopular, but the best thing that they have to do, not just for their own people, not just for their own country, for the world, which is exactly what Churchill did when he needed to do it.
Couldn't agree more, and great. Seriously, they told me you were fantastic. Please come on again. Brilliant. Fleur Hussein Nahum, Israeli Foreign Ministry Special Envoy, former Mayor of Jerusalem. And to balance it out, I can't wait to come back from the break. Coming back next, a man who put out a tweet. Congratulations to Hannah and Zach Polanski. The Green Party ran a fantastic campaign in Gorton and Denton. It resonated with us. We need to reform so much. The Green Party are the party to do it. Really? What's his name again? I've forgotten. What's his name? I'm joking. Dale Vince is next on Breakfast.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 10 to 10. Alex Phillips here from 10 o'clock. We say a very good morning to the founder of Ecotricity, Dale Vince. Welcome to Breakfast. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you, Jeremy. How are you?
I'm a bit confused by your tweet, Dale.
Oh, yeah.
Congratulations to Hannah and Zach Polanski. The Green Party ran a good campaign. It resonated, struck a chord because people are fed up with the status quo. Nothing seems to have changed since the end of the Tory era. I agree. We need reform of our energy system and tax system. Two big levers to address the cost of living crisis and imbalance in our society. We need reform with a small r. This was a protest vote and a message for Labour. I hope they have their ears on it. It was also a rejection of reform again, despite the opinion polls. When it comes to the crunch, people just don't want reform. And how ironic for Nigel Farage to complain that the Greens run a divisive campaign. That's what Reform's entire way of doing politics. I just want to talk about the Green Party. I know you believe in all of that, and that's fine, but I didn't hear anything environmental, mate. I heard only about a party who managed to win a seat by garnering the Muslim vote and talking about a genocide in Gaza. Is that fair enough?
Well, I think there's nothing wrong with the Muslim vote and nothing wrong with talking about the genocide in Gaza. I'm surprised, Jeremy, that you had on your show the representative of genocidal state Israel. I'm surprised you did that.
Can I ask
just
you
now?
a
Your
question?
Previous guest
No,
shouldn't have been here.
Can I ask you a question?
And if you talk about talking to parents of dead children, what about the 180 dead children in the school in Iran?
Listen, you lot talk...
Killed by Israel.
Am I going to be able to speak? Am I going to be able to speak?
Yes,
you talk about
please. It is your
genocide
show.
the whole time in Iran, right? But here's the thing. The man that you are blowing...
Palestine.
Sorry? The man...
You said Iran, Palestine.
The man who's you're blowing smoke up the backside of, Zach Polanski, hear me out. At the weekend said we should lay down our nuclear weapons, we should open all our borders, give back our status of NATO and cut ties with America. Now, this was on the reaction to what happened in Iran. Fact here. Can you explain to me, if you're a Gaza critic and you talk about genocide, we'll put that to one side, why are none of you lot in the Green Party saying that the Ayatollah Khomeini who was taken out at the weekend has killed thousands of his own people? Why don't you call that genocide, Dale?
I don't think that is genocide. I mean, if you look up the definition of genocide, I think you find it's not. Netanyahu's killed over 100,000 Palestinians in the last 2 years.
What is the definition of genocide
cleansing.
then? What's the definition of genocide? Killing your own people isn't genocide?
Yeah, but I think it's about the numbers of it. I don't know how many he's killed, but if it's thousands, right? Thousands is a lot of people. It's wrong, but it doesn't meet the threshold of genocide. Genocide is a very big crime. The United Nations, the International Court have found Israel preliminarily guilty of genocide.
You don't think it's genocide what the Ayatollah's done to his people because it's numbers. Let me put something else to you. The deputy leader of the Green Party, Mohsin Ali, joined a rally in London in support of the Islamic regime in Iran. Are you supportive of what the Ayatollah Khomeini did for his country and his people?
I think one important thing to say, Jeremy, just to go back to your point just now, in my tweet, I was talking about the by-election and the state of our country, the cost of living crisis, which Hannah spoke to in her post-election victory speech, by-election victory.
She talked about Muslims and billionaires.
I was referring to the fact that we, as I said in my tweet, it's very clear, we're all fed up. There hasn't been enough change. I'm not a member of the Green Party, by the way, that's just to correct that. I was simply saying what she said was right. We aren't seeing enough change. 5 million people in our country live in poverty, and yet, 10,000 people have more than 10 million people, I'm confused now, 10 million pounds in the bank. And we have a great wealth disparity and a tax disparity, and I'm basically talking to that point. She's right, people are fed up. That's why the Greens got in Manchester.
But you can't be... my reason for doing it, hear me out one sec, is I don't disagree with that, some of it. But you don't get taken seriously when push comes to shove if you're a party that says we'll legalise heroin, we'll open our borders and we'll support people who kill their own people. Let's talk about, let's talk...
Fair enough. Fair enough, but I wasn't supporting those policies,
No.
Jeremy. I was talking...
But if people say the Greens... But let's talk about what you said. I completely agree. The Tories lost my vote because they stopped doing anything they said they were going to do. The last 18 months, and I know you were a donor to Labour, must have left you cold. I mean, this whole... they've destroyed business. They've increased national insurance. Tell me, you're a businessman. I'm not. I thought you made money or made growth by encouraging people to set up business, to employ people, and the money to filter down into the economy. The hospitality sector's on its backside under this government, isn't it?
I don't think all of that is exactly correct. I don't think that... I mean, it's a great, colourful description, but I don't accept it. I'm disappointed that Labour haven't done enough on poverty. I think it took too long to end the two-child cap. I think the cost of living crisis is still with us. We should have reformed the energy market. We could halve our electricity bills if we did that. But I think that Labour, more than anything else, needs to stand up against big business in favour of people. Because, as Hannah alluded to in her speech, we are serving the interests of people that have an awful lot of money in our country.
Do you not find that ironic that she's married to a multi-millionaire of a man who was the deputy boss of AstraZeneca? Do you know, nobody brought that up. Do you not think that's quite ironic? She doesn't even live in the constituency, mate. Come on. Poverty, and her husband's a multi-millionaire. Let's have it out. Come on.
But I think, listen, I campaigned for a wealth tax, right? And you guys in the media, you call me a multi-millionaire. And I won't deny
I've never called you that.
I am.
I know you give away a lot. Listen, fair play to you.
Yeah. But look, what I'm saying is, I'm a rich person, and I argue that rich people should pay more tax. I'm a donor that argues that we should end donations in our country to make sure that politics is squeaky clean. I mean, am I more likely to be listened to as a rich person arguing for a wealth tax, or less likely?
I've no idea, but I'm happy to listen to you. I just think it's dangerous to purport. This is absolutely being honest with you. I don't have anything. I don't have any problem with green issues. But you talked about Gorton and Denton. You talked about their message. They didn't mention anything about the environment. They talked about billionaires. They talked about the Muslim vote. And it was sectarian. I'm not sticking up for any other party. That's a fact. I'm not even getting involved in accusations that have happened. But tell me a green policy that she talked about in that campaign. Not one.
I have no idea. And honestly, Jeremy, I didn't care. It wasn't about that as far as I could see. I don't think the by-election was about environment issues. And the Green Party are about more than environment issues as far as I can see.
Do you believe this country under Labour is finished?
God, no. We're just getting started. We're 18 months in. I mean, that's a crazy thing to say.
Well, they're never going to be re-elected for 20 years after this performance. Starmer's a complete... You can't tell me you support Keir Starmer in any way.
I do. I can tell you that. I do support him. I think he's doing a good job. He hasn't done the best, right? He's made mistakes, but he knows that. And I think he's got an enormous mandate from the public, and he should continue. He should deliver the things he promised in his manifesto. I think he will.
What was in that drink you've just taken? Are you joking me? You think he's doing a good job? He's the most hated prime minister in the history of prime ministers. We've got the highest taxation. We've got social problems left, right and centre. We're laughed at on the international stage. The man's had more U-turns than I don't know what. You've got 30 seconds. You can't possibly tell me he's doing a good job, Delvin.
No, I think he's done a decent job. Look what he does on the world stage, handling Trump. I mean, Trump was the massive disruption to Keir Starmer's start in office in number 10. I think he's done good things, but they don't get talked about. Reforming actually our electoral system, lowering the voting age, making...
Yeah, that's to ensure victory. Dale, I have to go. Please come on again. I want to have more of this. We love having you on. Dale Vince, I can't gut it. We have to finish. I think Starmer's doing a good job. Dale, keep taking the tablets. This is Talk Breakfast. The Green Party have won the Denton and Gorton by-election. Labour in third place.
Breaking news that Peter Mandelson has now been arrested. So Mandy and Andy have now both had their collars felt.
What would Andrew Loney tell them to do?
To come clean, be honest. And if Charles is complicit in this cover-up, which I believe he is, then I think he has to fall on his sword.
When you define sex, or gender or sex, what you mean is biological sex, and that's a man or woman, what you are physically.